flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How'd you get your shoulder out there? I was trying to place your flag. You set up too tall.
Okay, administrative business and copy paper bids.
Okay. Well, the first thing that I have are the minutes of December 16th. And I also put, I did a little transcript of the video because there seemed to be some confusion with what went on that vote. And so that's in your packet, I believe, someplace. But,
Okay, so on the minutes, I want to talk about the minutes a little bit.
okay,
And I want to talk about your transcript a little bit,
okay,
okay? So I do know that we've been a very relaxed board, and when we make motions, we don't always follow any special rule of order, which we probably do need to start doing so. But there's multiple times when people make motions, when something is said, you'll hear so moved. And so it's a motion. And so in this particular case, granted, I did not say that I make a motion. But, and I did view the tape multiple times myself and along with other people as well. I did, in fact, respond to exactly the way the chairman presented it, what is your wish, and of course I said that, which was wrong. I should have said I make a motion. I'm not gonna cover up or flower what I said. On the same token, then Jonah said that, do I want to include it with the changes, so he understood what I was saying. I was also then engaged with a conversation with Brad Jantz back and forth
sure.
about how do I want to include the timing of that. So he fully understands also what I was doing. Now I noticed in your transcript and how you wrote everything out, and you did point out, and I like this, that Doggy raised his hand. So you're using also body gestures and things like that to kind of instill that he so properly did what he was supposed to do by raising his hand and made a motion. But what you failed to do was, if you watched the video right after that, because Brad and I were having a conversation about the timing, it was 120 days, 180 days, and so on, and he knew, and he just dropped his head because he knew I had a motion on the table. I mean, and just, you know, Mr. Dawkey made his motion. Of course, you didn't put that in the transcript, how he, and it was so blatant on the tape, if you looked at it, it was like, oh, now Randy's making a motion, dropped his head. It was really stunning. And then I will also add that if you noticed, you put in the minutes that Jonah cast a vote. No, Jonah didn't vote. He didn't. He was sitting back on his chair, and I don't want to speak for you, but I will.
I was going to bring it up. I was a little confused, and,
Yeah.
and I hate to say that, but I thought there was a motion on the table at that moment, and to know what motion we were voting for at that moment, and it wasn't clear to me.
So all I want to say is, you have it in the minutes that he voted no, he didn't vote. It was such a cluster, and I don't know how to fix that. I wasn't going to bring it up. I was just going to leave it go. But since you went to the extent of doing the, as you would call it, your transcript, I thought, well, maybe we need to go ahead and discuss it. And I would say that, and I also want to point out one other thing again. So if you look on your minutes, the one just before that, the Diamond Vista maintenance discussion. And it's interesting on that one right there. That was the one right there, and it says right in your minutes that there was discussion, was said there, and then you asked, the chairman asked what the consensus would be of the route that we want to take, and you asked several times, could you repeat that so I know what consensus we're going to take. And so then Brad goes and outlines exactly what it was, that we agree as long as we knew the insurance currently provided, et cetera, et cetera. And Mr. Becker asked if everyone got that, and Jonah says, so moved. Mr. Becker did ask him if he needs to make that in a motion, and Brad said, yeah, we should. And Jonah simply nodded his head. So my only point is that if we're gonna remain relaxed in our minutes, then just as Mr. Becker asked, we wanna make that a motion, and we've done that many times, okay, that's fine. But when we're gonna start picking and choosing which ones are gonna be motions, then I think we have a problem. So either we're gonna I think either we need to go by some rule of order, or before we actually move on to another motion, when somebody is talking about it like we do, we need to clarify, are you making a motion? Somehow we need to set a standard, because to me this looks exceedingly biased, and there are so many inconsistencies in this. I mean, it was quite, as far as I'm concerned, a cluster, which is not good for this commission.
Okay, may I respond to that?
For the one,
Oh,
based on that, what the motion was, or was determined to be, the vote would have been that way. It would have been a 3-2.
So that's
I'm
the
not-
way you would have voted?
I'm not going to try to change that.
Okay, so my response to that, to what you're saying is, I agree that it was confusing, and I agree that it was, but it's not my job to run the meeting. I just record what happens in the meeting.
That's
And
exactly
I
right.
recorded it to the best of my ability the way it happened. The reason I recorded it as a 3-2 is because that's the way the chairman announced it. He announced a 3-2 vote, and Mr. Gehring did not say, no, I didn't vote that way. So he could have had the opportunity to say, excuse me, that I didn't vote. So I have to record it according to what was done. And if the chairman didn't recognize your motion, then I think you should have said, you know.
I did.
Yes, okay, but you said it off that way. And I'm sorry, but I did ask Brad. He turned to me and asked, did you have that as a motion? And I said, no, I didn't. And he said, okay, because he didn't think it was either. And we talked about it after. I think the commission as a whole probably does need to be a little bit more ordered at some points on how you conducted a meeting. And if what Brad had told me was that if there was a motion made, it can be superseded by another motion if there wasn't a second.
Yeah, it would have to die for lack of a second. It has to be dealt with. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's by the chair. The chair has to
Right.
decide to.
And so the minutes, I'm not picking and choosing. I'm not running the meeting. I'm just recording. So if you're,
I didn't say
maybe I
you
could
were on
ask
the
for
minutes.
clarification if I'm not sure. But when there's not, if the chairman didn't recognize it as a motion, and I never heard anyone state it as a motion, then I can't really record it as a motion.
So I will also just add to that, I did not say your minutes. I'm saying your
Okay.
transcription was incomplete. It was very biased. You only showed part of the body motions or something. By people, you didn't include Brad's, you didn't include his. And
I just
assume
did the body
this right
motion
here
on the
was-
vote itself, because that's the part that was questionable.
So, the point that I was trying to make, and like Jonas said, the end result was the same. It doesn't make a difference. It's just a matter of protocol and being respectful, you know. I know there's very little respect in this board, and I got that, but you know, when somebody is making motions or something, the chairman does all the time say, the chairman does, excuse me, I'm
You know, as
talking,
chairman
so-
though, I never heard the motion, you making that motion.
I understand that, but even on Jonas, previous to that, you didn't hear that either, when he just said, so me, you at least asked him, is that a motion? And you do that oft times, which is appropriate. Is that a motion, or do you want to make a motion? I mean,
Yeah.
you at least acknowledge the person and what they said. I spent a long time talking back and forth to clarify exactly what we were talking about. But anyway, like I said, the decision was made. No matter how many times we vote, it was already a done deal. It wouldn't change anything. But I'm just saying that if you're going to try to clarify something, you need to not be so biased. You need to look at the tape and show it all, because the tape tells everything. And a lot of people do see it. And I understand that your only job is really to take the minutes, to record that, and that is true. But also one other thing, and you know this, and we had discussed this once before, when you do take minutes, especially on motions, you're supposed to write those down word by word, not summarize. And we had discussed that, and I noticed that that's not taking place either. But just wanted to see about getting a proper order going, because it really does look bad on the commission.
Diane, I don't want to discourage anything you said, but when I said so moved, I did put my hand out so everybody could recognize. And
No, I got that. I was just simply saying, because I didn't say, I want, this is a motion. I was just saying, yeah, it was my will, because that's Mr.
Wish.
Becker's wish. Yes, wish, because that's what Mr. Becker said, so I said, well, my wish is,
Sure.
which was inappropriate. I should have said that I make a motion.
Well, I don't know that
But
it was
we're just so-
inappropriate because you were it was discussion.
Well,
It
it
was
was
discussion.
until I thought I was making a motion, but I would take the blame for my inaccuracies on that. I should have said, I'll make the motion, and I didn't. But I was just pointing out that in this relaxed setting that we have, we don't always do that. We do it in every way, shape, or form, and I just didn't mean to pick on you, Jonah, but I mean, that's just one that we oftentimes do, and I've heard it said many other ways by other people, and we know that they're making a motion or something, or paying attention at least to say, is that a motion, or is that your motion, or whatever, you know, rather than just blow it off. That was just my point, was to try to make a more professional setting and be more
Can I
clarified.
say something?
Yeah.
That's just, you know, that was good politics on Randy's part. He had it all lined up, and he's, you know, wanted to get this over with, and sometimes there's too much talking going on, and we just need to move on to the next subject.
I guess your definition of good politics and mine is two different things.
Yes,
We'll leave it at that.
been doing it for a while, so.
Well, I would certainly disagree that that's not good politics.
Okay.
Well, I don't believe we've ever made a motion without using the actual terms, I'm making a motion.
Yes,
Yes, we have, multiple times.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna have to prove that to me.
That's easy to do on the tape.
Randy, do you have something?
Yeah. We come here with 5 different opinions. Whether we all want to talk and tell our opinions or what. And my understanding, what you was doing, Diane, was just your opinion, what your wishes. So, your wishes is your wishes. And until you make a motion, there's nothing on the floor.
So from now on,
I'm
it
just-
will say,
I'm
I
just
am
saying.
going to make a motion, or it's not gonna be recognized.
It's
Is that
either
what
been
you're
done
saying?
that way, either make a motion, or the chairman says is that agreeable to all of us. And we've done it that way too.
Okay, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
I'm simply saying we need to set a
So,
clear
and
standard.
whenever it's
I'm
not
going to
agreeable to
second.
all of us, well then, one of us speaks up if we don't like it. It was not my wishes to have a moratorium put
No,
on.
I'm not disputing that.
Yeah.
I'm disputing the protocol
So-
that we had no lack of that. We had no, it
I
was
s-
improperly handled. is
Well, I
what I'm
sat right
saying.
here and listened to you, and I never heard a motion. I never heard,
I
you said your
admitted
wishes.
that I didn't make a
Okay.
motion.
So that's why it was
I admitted
made.
that I didn't specifically say that,
Mhm.
but the way I was presenting it was as a motion.
So, I'm ready to move on.
Let's go. Go ahead, move on.
Okay, so the minutes themselves,
Okay, we have the minutes of December the 16th. Any other discussion? Not, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as written.
I'll second it.
Are you gonna leave his vote in there even though he didn't vote?
The turnout,
way it
the
is?
turnout would have been the same, so.
well, the chairman announced that was
Yeah.
his vote, and he did not say otherwise. So as
Okay.
far as, I think it stands as a vote. We can put in the current meeting's minutes, if, Jonah, if you would like this, that we discussed it, there was confusion, and that,
Yeah, and my main point there is the newspaper did do a very good job of
Yeah, they did.
putting down what took place, and I want to make sure that it's not,
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion then and we'll,
well, we will do it on the minutes of this current meeting.
based on the minutes of the
next meeting.
Yeah, so these are the previous meeting's minutes, which I think we can approve. And then I will just put up our final statement in this current meeting's minutes during this discussion.
Okay, is everybody clear to that on that? Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the December 16th minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
All right, I did not print those out yet because I wasn't sure if some changes would be needed, so I will print those out and get them ready for you to sign a little bit later. do have change orders.
Yeah.
And has the mail gone around?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Everybody sees-
okay.
okay.
Yeah, wasting your time if you're out there supervising.
Actually, I missed that guy. He could have been, you know, sometimes really difficult for us.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Depends on what side of the fence you're sitting on.
Right.
You might not have said that if you'd been sitting here.
Yeah, I know, I had, now I gotta deal with my copper on that one.
Yeah. But he was always good to talk to.
Oh, yeah.
You know, no matter what the situation was. You're on the sides where.
I always claimed to be a Democrat, but he was always a Republican. You talk to him, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I have the payroll for Mrs.
Early check here for $15 to Marion National Bank for, that's clearinghouse fee.
Yeah, that's for the direct deposit fee.
That's it. We have the December 23rd, 19 payroll, not at $22,543.42.
Is that just for the bonuses, Tina?
Yes. And that's the total, including all of like the caper, the withholding capers and taxes.
Just one spot.
Yes,
that
just
Just
on the
one,
front.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Who did provide the cookies?
Jessica at the health department.
Right.
Yeah,
Nice. Send a thank you to her.
I will do that.
For the health of it.
She really enjoys doing that, and she brings some over to the office, and this time she decided to bring them out for the meeting, and so that was very nice. And Brad is not going to be here, but he asked me to wish you a Merry Christmas. Okay, the next thing that I have is Resolution 2019-24. This is every 2 years, I believe, and this is to reappoint Randy Frank as the South Central Region Homeland Security member.
Okay, resolution 2019-24, a resolution appointing a voting member to the South Central Region Homeland Security Council for Marion County, which Randy Frank is the designee. So, need a motion to approve his appointment to that.
I'll make that motion. Motion to approve Randy Frank to.
If we could get a motion to adopt Resolution 2019-24.
As part of that.
Can you add that to your
So
motion?
moved.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I would, no.
Seconded, you seconded? Did you second that, Randy?
No.
You want to second it? Okay, moved and second, all those in favor? You need to sign that and mark your vote on it.
In your packet, you had some information, which is the transfer station's tonnage reports and recycling reports. And we don't generally review that in the meeting, but it was in your packet for information.
Do we want to bring up the bond attorney's
Yeah,
information?
I was just waiting. I was gonna talk about the lease purchase next in the timeline and where we are in the process. Okay. Okay, are you ready for that?
Sure.
Okay, so in your packet, you have the timeline of the lease purchase for the transfer station. And so we have, Dave Arterberry has started the documents. He's the financial advisor with Stifel, what used to be George K. Baum, and now it's Stifel, whatever it is. I don't remember the name of it yet.
Steeple Nicholas,
There, thank you. Okay, I have that wrong.
not St. Nicholas.
Anyway, so this is the timeline as it is right now. We have sent out the requests for proposals to the lenders. Those are due back on January 9. They are due to be reviewed and accepted by the commission on the 13th. So these will go to Dave Arterberry, who will review them, he will present them and explain everything. Then the board will choose the lender on the 13th. And when you all accepted the bid, well, you haven't accepted the bid. We did the bid opening for the transfer station and you had 60 days. And this January 13th date is just beyond the 60 days. So it's 10 days past. So I have requested an extension from the contractor through the engineer, and they have agreed to a 10-day extension. So on the 13th of January, I would anticipate that the board would choose the lender and also approve the construction contractor on that date. So that is the timeline for that. Then the documents will be drafted. We should have final documents on the 3rd, and then we have arranged for delivery of the funds by February 13th. So it should be moving pretty quickly, but it's a pretty large process when you're doing a lease purchase for real estate. It's a different animal than what we've done before on the equipment. So anyway, that's the timeline. That's kind of where things are right now.
On the 9th,
Mhm.
those will be sent to Dave himself at his.
They will be sent to me and to Dave.
Okay.
And that's the way that he has that set up. And
So
they,
there won't be no special meeting or anything like that?
no,
Okay.
because the financial advisor looks at all of those because there's going to be a lot of details and financial information that he needs to make sure that they're comparable and that the terms are appropriate, and then those will come to the board on the 13th.
So I have a question. I thought that back we had, because I've always been an advocate about, maybe not financing it. And I thought that back at the time when he was here and all this took place, that it was stated that we would have an opportunity to maybe go through the budget and look to see if we do in fact have to finance the entire amount. As I see we're pushing forward, is that not going to be the case? Are we not going to even consider looking at our budget and see if we have to borrow the entire amount? Are we just going to borrow the entire amount and just, and I say that because I notice he's going to charge us $18,750 for his services rendered. Somebody is here.
That's Dave Arterberry. It's 1% of the.
Okay, so that's another $18,750. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tina, you sent a text how joyous that we maybe got our pilot agreement from Diamond Vista. That was $265,000, if I'm not mistaken, and give or take.
Pardon me?
Some of that have to go to the school though?
Well, we need
No, it doesn't.
we do need to review, Brad needs to review our pilot agreement because there is a statute that pertains to payments in lieu of taxes. And we may have to at least partially follow that statute, and it does say that may not all be county money. So we're gonna review the agreement, review the statute to make sure that we understand.
Okay, and
all of
that doesn't take Brad very long to do that. But I do know we do not send any to the schools because the schools have their separate pilots. So,
But not with the Expedition, right?
no, that's Diamond Vista.
I know, I thought Expedition was piloting all together and then
Yeah.
you had split.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I didn't, honestly, I wasn't involved in that
I'm
very
trying to
much,
get off
so
the
I
horse here.
didn't
But
get,
that's okay. Expedition, whatever our pilot is here, we have, out of our county pilot, we have to give the schools 40% of it.
That's right.
That's where I always argue that their pilot is not near as good as the one up north. But my question to you is, realizing that we got the pilot money, and I did read the pilot, and I think it's open, but Brad, I'm happy that Brad will verify that. So let's just assume at the moment, that's $265,000. We do still have the $165,000 in there from the MCC, which is just sitting there. So just on basic arithmetic, that's almost $500,000 right there, just off the top of my head without really going into the budget, that maybe we could take off in this loan. And my concern there is, because we're paying somewhere in the neighborhood on 15 years that Mr. Becker proposed to finance this thing, $650,000 in interest. I have problems with that, and if we can reduce that in any fashion, I think that would be prudent to do so. But if that's not the will of the board, I guess it's not. Because I sang that song for a long time, to try not to finance if we don't have to finance, and we do have money out there.
But we also spoke to some of that money's earmarked because, capital improvement fund, we've got roads to rebuild.
But the money that I referred to is not earmarked.
I'm just wondering if, when we did our budget, that $165,000 was not wasn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
It's still under MCCEC on the budget.
For 2020, it's figured in just as cash carryover to fund the 2020 budget.
Okay, but that doesn't mean it's designated for anything, you're just putting it back into the general. It's not earmarked for anything, so we know it's there, and it's money that we allocated before we didn't use. So I'm just saying that would be money now that we could use to this. I'm just saying that we could.
Okay, and to answer, I can look at the way that I would have to review the way that he drafted the request for proposals, because when we did the resolution, it was an amount not to exceed the 1.875. So I'd have to review the document that we sent out to the lenders to verify that it may be a lesser amount, or if we look at the whole amount and decide to, you know, there's still maybe an opportunity to do less.
But if there's no penalty for early payoff, I mean,
Well, on this, there's a certain amount of time that you do have to pay in, and then that you cannot pay it off before. And then after that, there's no restriction. So,
I think is that like the jail?
it's, yes, similar. It's like a bond issue, but it's just, it's a little bit more complex.
Okay, wait till a certain date.
Yeah.
And that's when the jail money was sitting there waiting to pay that.
Right.
Well, I'm not against a lesser amount to finance as far as that's concerned. If we can apply some funds to that, then, you know, I'm not against that, but I don't want to take anything away from anything that we're looking at down the road too.
am I understanding correctly that the payment amount is in the budget that we will be making?
The payment amount is
Well, I mean-
able to be covered by the budget,
Right.
yes. It's just not, it's not designated as a line item at this point because we hadn't done anything on it, so.
And to, if you were to take down reserves or do anything like that, that would actually create another issue and have a, you can't just take money and throw it back into that account down the road. You've got to raise the mill, right, in order to get that back.
I don't believe so.
What do you, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what you're asking.
Build back your reserves. I was just making sure it wouldn't be a tax increase or a mill levy increase in order to get those reserves back.
Could be. Well, could be.
And that's one thing I would never want to do, so.
So if you spend your reserves down too much, then you would have to increase taxes to be able to operate at a secure level.
Yes.
With 3 to 6 months of operating within your reserves. And we are under a tax lid with the county. And so our ability to raise that, even if we needed to, is limited. If we needed to raise it beyond a certain level,
Take an election, right?
yes, we would have to hold an election.
So that's my concern. I really don't want to put ourselves in that position.
But
Where we
Joey,
get there.
the money that I'm referring
Right.
to is not in the reserves.
Right.
Right. And there is no set amount for reserves. There is, you know, just suggested amounts, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, different counties do different things. So you don't have to necessarily raise the mill levy to get more unless you want more. You know, but I'm just saying that there are, I'm still gonna say there's money that we could tap into so we don't have to finance so much. I just hate putting $650,000 down the tubes. And my suggestion was too, if you can't take the money out of the budget, then we should just finance from, well, we could be financing from myself and then, because even by taking that payment, the payment that it's gonna take to pay this back would come out of the transfer station monies. But then that restricts him for 15 years, that's money he's got tied up that he can't do anything else, or she. I mean, so you're kind of chasing your own tail there by saying you're gonna save money by financing when you're really not. You know, it takes away from all future budgets, but different people have different finance ways.
It's just a cash management tool. Capital projects are generally done that way because it's a more steady way of budgeting over time. Rather than use your cash reserves and then, you know, go down and up and down and up. It's just a more steady way of
And we,
doing
you know, I think we still operate at a minimum on reserves. If we're at 3 months, I consider that a minimum. And that's kind of where we've been at most of this year.
We got what, close to 6 million in reserves, if I'm not mistaken, and that don't include all the other little baskets that I showed, that I've seen. It'll be all right, right on our budget is 5 million something, almost 6.
What is it when they value us on loans and stuff? Your
Bond
standing,
rating?
or
Bond
credit, the state values us on that. If we get too low on reserves, or
Yeah.
your credit rating goes down, everything
Effective
drops.
bond rating, absolutely.
It's not only just running from one year to the next year. It's a whole bunch of things here that's involved in this, and that's it's a whole lot, not just points that's been made. There's other things too.
Well, anyway, that's kind of just an update of where the process is. And I will have to check to see if at this point we can borrow a lesser amount, because I know that was discussed.
With this pre-approved for this, we can't
To
do
a certain
higher.
level.
Right,
So if we take $100,000 less, it'll be all right too.
right. Because we don't know what the actual cost will be at this point. But I will find out the answer to your question. The other thing is so I've talked about the bid extension, and I've talked about the calendar. The other thing is there's a letter of engagement in there for for Dave Arterberry's services. And then we will also, I got another one, which is we have a bond attorney that also works with Dave Arterberry, and they will do the transcripts and the legal work with the real estate itself. And that was on the table this morning. So generally, it has been John Small for all the years we've done this. He's actually retiring. And so he is working now, he is working jointly with Gilmore Bell to service this particular project for us. And there is an individual, I can't remember the name of it, looking at that report, but that will be our main contact there instead of John Small.
So I'm a little confused, just clarify this. So Gilmore Bell has got legal opinion fees, $1,875. That's what he will charge us?
No, they don't have an amount stated in there. It just says amount mutually agreed. That just says, that's the $1,875,000.
This
At
is
the
just
top.
an.
Okay, so they're just gonna
It's
be
an
able to
engagement.
part of Barry then,
It's-
right?
We would need to engage both.
Okay, so they're not gonna charge us anything? or
They
we
will
don't-
charge
We
us.
don't know what that is yet?
We don't know what it is yet.
Okay.
So I would need
We'll need a
an
motion
approval
to
of the,
Stiefel Nicholas
yes.
we'll need an approval of the Stiefel Nicholas Company, Dave Atterbury as for the financial advisory services on the transfer station. That, of course, that's part of your packet.
And I didn't have the other one in time to include in the packet, so you have it on the table.
Do you want to wait until you can read through this and we deal with it next Tuesday? Because we've got the hard copy here. So I think we could do that, couldn't we?
Sure.
But we'll need to act on the Stiefel and Nicholas on the advisory services. Any more discussion on that part of it? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
Make a motion to approve Gilmore Bell.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is
No,
the,
Stiefel Nicholas,
that one's the one in your.
the one it was in
We'll
your
do that
packet.
next week.
Yeah, I was gonna,
Down at the bottom.
bottom of it.
Right here.
The hard copy is the one we're not gonna act on until next Tuesday.
Can I pronounce it? How do you pronounce it? Stiefel or Stiefel?
Stiefel.
Stiefel and Nicholas.
I'd make a motion to approve Stiefel Nicholas Company Incorporated to do the,
Financial Advisory Service.
yeah, they're the financial advisor, not Dave
They're
Arterbury.
advisors. Okay, there's a motion on the table to approve the Stiefel and Nicholas Advisory Services engagement letter.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. And then I'll bring back the Gilmore Bell one next time. If you're not ready to do that today.
You have the hard copy on that one that needs to be signed.
Yeah. Thank you.
We gotta have it.
Does that require a resolution?
No, I believe that's just white. What did you say? Did you have a question?
They're just, Gilmore Bell's just like a title company, basically.
Gilmore Bell is basically an attorney. They're gonna provide attorney services. They're a bond attorney.
Oh,
And so they will, there's some specific legal things they have to do since it's a real estate lease purchase. And then they will do this type of a lease purchase because of the size of it. It requires a transcript of the process and it requires additional reporting, which I will do on our, in the future, but they'll prepare the transcripts and provide the legal opinions and the legal services to be sure that everything is in line.
so is there any estimation of cost? or-
I asked, and, you know, she didn't know because she doesn't know how long it's gonna take to go through the transfer station ownership documents that I had to send her. And then there's an easement of the railroad over there that she's gonna be checking on. She's gonna be checking the survey to make sure, I mean, she just needs to make sure that everything is in order with our building project to be.
I mean, $10,000 deal, is it a $5,000 deal?
I would say it's probably between 5 and 10, I would imagine, but I don't know, and I did ask her. She said it's really too soon to tell. So if you table it until Tuesday, I may have an idea from her, because I did mention to her that the board may not want to approve it without an amount stated.
Might check with her at the end of the week to see if they've come up with anything.
Yeah, I don't know, because of the holidays and everything,
Yeah.
they probably won't have a better idea quite yet, but anyway.
Is that something that we could actually wait on until we find out?
We can. I don't think they're gonna push it too much, but they already are doing work, so.
I don't mind building over the road.
Okay, you ready, Randy?
Yes.
Diane, when you turn your microphone, I already mentioned it to the others earlier, we can't pick up your voice very well on the.
My voice probably carries. On the tape, my voice is one of the best ones. It really is. You can hear me
And you're
Hello?
close
sometimes.
too, so.
But it don't work anyway. But it's,
All right.
but the rope is right here in my way, so I turned it that way. I got it figured out now.
Oh,
Might have to trade our microphones.
Yep.
Is it turned on?
Yeah, it's on, but
Yeah,
it's very
it's on.
subtle.
I don't. It helps in some cases.
Anything else, Tina?
I think that was all that's on my list.
Okay, Bryce here?
Yes.
Ready?
Yeah, yes. Bryce?
Bryce. Morning, Bryce.
Morning.
First thing I have is area fuel bids. The co-op got all 3 areas.
So Bryce, did you enjoy the training that you had down there at the cooperative grain on fuel and things like that?
I learned an awful lot of stuff that was there, a lot of it I think we can do it ourselves.
And is contracting one of them? You say, I know they didn't touch on that very much, but contracting,
I've heard from one saying that he was a great idea, but the other people said it's gonna cost us more money. So,
Okay, we got the area fuel bids here. Two bids from MFA Oil and Cooperative Grain, low bid. Area 1, cooperative grade, 3360. Area 2, cooperative grade, 483405. And Area 3, cooperative grade, 471705, for a total of $12,909.70. So I will make a motion to approve the low bid of cooperative green on the area fuel bid. Seconded by John, all those in favor? Aye.
all right. Follow up with, last week or 2 weeks ago about using ADH to design the culvert up on 290th. We basically, I just took their tentative bid, or their quantities, and turned that into the state. so that we really don't have to make a decision on that now. The fact is, they don't want us to go any farther until it's actually a project with the FHWA. So we're still in the holding path, but based on initial cost, whatever else, we should be looking at $140,000 to $150,000 to redo that, and that will be an 80-20 split, 80-20 county. And that's just tentative, that was determined last week, so I don't know anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months until it's actually made a project. So
Can you refresh what project that is?
this is a culvert replacement, 125 feet east of Limestone on 290th. The water was over the road several times this year. Did damage on both top end and bottom end, and the road is actually sinking over the top of the culverts. So being a federal secondary road, we can actually get FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, money to fix it.
It's 125 feet east of Limestone,
Yeah.
290th. It's kind of down in a hollow, right?
Yeah. So anyway, we don't have to make a decision on it right now, but that paperwork was turned in, so we're good. Follow up on Lewis Vestry. Looking at all the information as far as signs, the only thing I could really see is that they actually make I think it said cattle crossing, and then there's also a picture of a cow. So we can make a decision on that. I did not find anything any more formal, any of that stuff, so I'll keep looking. But I did find out as far as the right of way on on 50th, basically like every other position or land description we have, it says such and such minus the area needed for the county road. It does not give a specific acreage or whatever else, and that basically says the same thing on both sides, that the right-of-way stayed over here, but the property over here said, like I said, less the area needed for the county road. So I don't know what that is.
So I did do the research on both of these questions that you had, and on the fencing, it is true, it is a fenced in, and you can put cattle, that they can do that. They can put cattle guards if breaking our road anywhere, it's perfectly legal. It's actually gone through pastures and stuff. They can't lock the gate, they can't put a locking gate. But by law, they can definitely put cattle guards up, and anybody hit the cow or anything like that, the person who hits the cow is liable. So that is the law, and I have it right here, and I spoke to Mr. Roger Eastman at Washburn Education, and he is the expert on ag law. And I also checked into this other property that you have right here on the, where they want to go around that hump there or something. And on that right there, that is adverse possession, and the state of Kansas has 15 years. If it was like that within 15 years, then this man can actually own that property. If he was using it for 15 years already.
Where did you find the inverse?
I researched it, and I had talked to some people at Washburn also, because it goes to ag stuff. It's called adverse possession. And Jay Hall could probably expand on that for you. He would also know about that. Am I correct in what I'm saying, Mr. Hall?
I don't know all the facts, but I know that adverse possession does exist, and so if he does meet certain criteria, he could adversely possess it, but it depends on.
But
if
he would have to
meets the
use
criteria.
the land, right? He'd have to be using the land for 15 years, right?
Yeah, if he meets all the criteria, then he could adversely possess the land.
Okay, but see, in this case, he's not using the land.
So it
So
would
that would
depend
not-
on if he meets the criteria.
Okay,
It looks like it should belong here.
it does.
All right.
See, so this
then
is- he just wants to
technically,
take that.
This person could have a cattle guard here and here and fence it off.
Yes, it belongs to this person
Yeah.
there. He can't do that.
My question is, where did you find adverse?
I can get you the documents if you
Well,
like.
you're just curious, because I looked, that's what Rebecca, she couldn't find anything, that, as far as deed, that's why I was asking where.
Oh, it's not a deed. I was looking at law and statute as to how that works when you take somebody else's land like that for pasture, if you're using it or something. Since
Oh,
this was
well-
like this, how we could just give this man's land?
Right,
Like-
but what I'm saying was based on, I was going by the legal aspect of where did they take the property from that person there? Did they pay him for it or whatever else? No, Rebecca couldn't find out. There was nothing like that.
And if there is nothing like that, then you would go to adverse possession if he meets, like Jay is saying, the
Okay.
criteria, which is a number of years, and that he used the land.
Okay,
You know.
well, I wasn't aware of that.
And I had a
just wasn't-
situation similar to that up north one time to where the fence, there was a fence dividing two properties, and the fence was on the one person's property by almost 13 feet more than it should have been, but the other person was using, we didn't know, nobody knew. Well, all the years passed, and now that person owned that land.
Mm.
And that other person lost 13 feet, which over a quarter mile is a lot of land. That's a first possession, but he was using the land. In this case, I don't think the guy is using the land, so you know,
Well,
check that out even all the more.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's.
But the cattle guards blew my mind. Anybody can come here and tell you they want to put in a cattle guard if they have land on both sides, and it's perfectly legal.
Well, I was in Nevada this week when we went out in the mountains and they had cattle guards up. And you hit this at 60 mph. And the only sign was on the cattle guard, saying cattle guard.
Mhm.
So you were there before you knew it. And
Yeah,
so as far as signage,
yeah. Well, like I said,
Buyer
you can
beware.
put up a sign that said cattle guard 500 feet or something
yeah,
like that, but.
but this was on the cattle guard.
Yeah, honestly, here's the other thing, you can put up all the signs you want to, if people don't want to pay attention to them, then that's
Yeah.
something else.
It's like railroad
Yeah,
tracks.
You have to cover yourself
Well,
legally on
here's the
something.
deal, they are only a caution sign anyway.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not like it's whatever else, so to say that you had a wreck or whatever else, well, we had a caution sign up there as compared to, you know, a regulatory sign or whatever else, but like I said, I don't care either way, but it's just,
Well, I mean, I think they need to be marked.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
we already have them in Marion County, so
So you're okay with them as long as we get the signs and?
I think as long as they're posted.
Okay.
Painted me, I want to put a sign on
Conspicuously.
Yeah, well,
it, reflective.
I mean, we can do all sorts of things, reflective striping, whatever else. Now, the issue is, they obviously can furnish the categories and everything else. Now, what about the signs? Should they have to pay for the signs? Because I'm sure we probably don't have any. We'd have to get some. Or do you want the county, I mean, if they're gonna be,
Well, I mean, if they're wanting to put it in, I would correspond with them and say, it needs to be marked, so are you okay paying for the sign?
okay.
I mean, what's the commission's thought on that? I mean, they're the ones that are asking for the cattle guard.
Yeah.
It's
I would
not-
expect to pay for the sign too.
It's not a standard option.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Does the land on both sides of the road have to be owned by the same landowner for this?
In this
to be legal?
case, yes, it is.
Yeah, that's what yeah. Okay.
That was the reason he wanted them. so
Right,
it's
right.
livestock.
Eliminate one fence,
Yeah.
or both fences.
Yeah. Two.
And this had to do with the water or something too, to get it across the other side, so.
And actually, I learned a lot about it. It's because really, you do own the land to the center of the road. So if you
Right.
own the land on one side to the center and you own it to the land on the other side of the center, then
You want
actually
more land.
driving through a pasture is the way a lot of the laws are written, some of those crazy things. So it's quite interesting.
Okay. All right, well, do you need is it okay if I need a motion or?
I don't know if we've ever taken a motion
To
on
allow-
something like that. I mean, it's,
Make a motion to allow the cattle guards so as there's no expense to the county.
we can, but we already have some in Marion County and they were never dealt with, that I know of.
It's like putting in a culvert.
Precedent.
You don't have to have a.
Well, I'm just saying for you guys, I can do whatever you want, so.
I mean, it isn't gonna hurt anything to make a motion. Joan, if you wanna make one, we can do that.
Make a motion that the cattle guards can be installed, property. What is it?
What's best?
U.S. Vestry. For 2 cattle guards and all appropriate signs needed at no expense to the county.
Okay,
Second.
been moved. Any other discussion? Someone wanna say, I'll go ahead and second that.
Randy.
Okay, Randy had it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Randy. Everybody understand the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I vote.
All right. I followed up with him on the price increase. The $10 environmental fee will be per ticket. So with our pub, we only get 1 ticket, so it's only one $10 charge. So that was the only other thing that we would have. So he said he pays it, he gets 1 ticket, and then that's all it is. So I was looking, Cherry was looking at stuff to try to revisit the rock from Burr Camp as to whether it was ever talked about being used use for base rock, as long as we carved it up. We talked about using that up there on 330th, and she hadn't found anything yet, but she's still looking. So,
You're talking about from Lincoln.
yes, yeah, so, but other than that, that's all I had, so.
So on the base rock, though, I'm pretty positive, and I think Linda, since she's here today, remember, maybe you don't, but when we had this discussion about buying KDOT approved rock, and I thought somebody brought it up about base or something, we had a discussion that you wouldn't want to put anything lesser than that as a base. I don't know if you remember that discussion.
Happened on March 25th, 2019.
I'm sorry,
March 25th, 2019
is when we discussed that.
It's when you voted on it.
That's when we voted on, okay. Okay, and that's what we wrote, that it would all
The
be.
county was not going to use anything that was not state approved,
Okay, okay.
because there's a miscommunication when you start using some and then others, but I'll talk about it later.
Okay, well, that answers the question, so. Okay.
And so I did get some of the invoices that were signed. I know there were some questions about the cost up there at Ham versus Harshman. And so I had requested some of these documents. And I think you were saying that you were buying state-approved rock from Harshman for $9 and some change, or 8 something.
I was going, it depends on what rock you get, but I was just going by the list that's up on in my office down there.
Oh, okay, because I was gonna say, even on these invoices that we purchased, you have some invoices here. Actually, Harshman is charging us $15.39, and that's a 1-inch road rock, and I think that's what they're hauling in from that place.
Way hard.
That's the blue road.
Yeah, that's probably the state approved, so anything that you're buying, then when you're buying this stuff for $9, I don't think that that's state approved, but
According to Sam Harshman, everything that we get down there is state approved, and he abides by that agreement that he signed here, and he's welcome to come to the commission and talk to him about it.
Okay, so the next thing I want to say is for the same, but this is for 1 1/4 inch KDOT approved rock from Ham is $12.15 a ton. So it is less than what Harshman is charging us, quite a bit. But I will be,
For the Waverly Rock.
for the Waverly rock, yes. I'm calling it the KDOT rock, yes.
Well-
So I am going to get copies, because Ham has had 3 or 4 KDOT tests this year, and I have requested that they send me copies of those, and I do want to see them. And actually, I'm going to request from Harshman also his copies of his state test.
Okay.
And so, because I do know there's certain ledges that they have, and I can't find my documents from last year. There are certain ledges that are just not state approved, and I just want to
Understand.
follow up on that, because the prices are just all over the wall here, and they don't make sense at all.
Well, it depends on, like I said, a different rock, whether we get, a certain gradation or SS5 or bigger stuff. I mean, it's, now one thing that, based on the information I've looked at, that Ham has only had 1 official quality pull this year, and Harshman's has had more than that, so.
Well, I'll find out for sure, but I think there's 4 from Ham, or 3 or something like that, but theirs is always state approved. All the ones that they have are state approved.
It's not, some of it's limestone, some of it's the hard.
Well, basically, all of it's gonna be limestone. The stuff bringing in from Waverly is obviously a different quality. All the limestone around here is in like the Fort Riley formations and stuff like that. I mean, they're gonna be very, very comparable. But yeah, there are seams in there that they can't use. They have a lot of chert in them and stuff like that. So, but I did follow up with Sam, and he said that he was abiding by that rule, so.
Okay. So then he would be able to provide me with a copy of his testing results.
Sure. That's, I guess, probably public information. so.
Well, sure it is.
Plus you also have to figure in that transportation
Well,
differential too.
Yeah, like I said, what is Woodbine, 12 miles north of Harrington, so again, that comes into play too, but I wish we could,
Well, if we're paying $15.39 from Harshman to have it come in from Waverly, and we're paying $12.15 from Ham, that's the difference right there anyway, and that includes the trucking, so, I would assume that
yeah, but,
the total price includes.
but that Waverly Rock's even better than what Ham has, so.
$15.39 it should be.
Well,
If that's what
is.
is.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that's fine, I
Yeah.
don't mind spending that. But I do know that there are some people that have already brought to my
We got more roads
attention.
with heavy
There are
traffic.
people that have brought stuff to my attention that, it's funny because there for a while they were saying the rock was holding up better and better, and now it's starting to just turn to mush quick again. And so that's why I question whether or not it is actually state approved. I'm
Well-
just questioning, I just wanna keep everybody on their toes, and that's all I'm saying. If it's right, it's right. If it's not, it's not.
If being around a quarry, you try to do the best you can to work with those ledges and stuff to that effect. There's absolutely no way that anyone can guarantee 100% that all that rock's exactly where it's supposed to be coming from. When they blow that stuff, it blows apart or whatever else. That's where you get your shot rock. You go through the gradations. Some rock, like anything else, the difference is in dirt. The difference between sand and dirt and everything else. I mean, there's no way that you can absolutely guarantee that. They're going by the best information they have, and right or wrong, they're different.
Well, I understand what you said,
But I can also tell you that in Ham, the guys have said, we get an awful lot of clay balls with it too. So that,
and see, that hasn't been proven. I seen the bucket, and there has been, one time, there was a bucket that was brought to us from Ham, okay? And they said, oh, I think Jesse's word was, this is dirty, this is dirty. Well, I took that bucket to several other county road places and stuff, and they all said that you have to have a certain amount of screenings in there to make it bond. Anyway, and the way they told me is it certainly was not overly. And if you want to call it dirty, I mean, I guess it's just a difference of terminology. But I know what I see on the roads, and I know that when we dump rock on the roads, and within a matter of just a few short weeks, it's gone because it's melted down, and that's the thaw freeze test, especially in the wintertime or when we go through rainy periods like we have this time. That to me is more valuable than your gradation. That's what I look at, because I have people tell me, my God, the rock just isn't lasting. But I'm just saying, this is something that we want to keep on top of, and make sure that we are getting what we're paying for, getting what we're supposed to be buying. That's all.
but when it comes to, you're talking about fines or dirty, whatever else, I mean, I can tell you right now, if you call it a commercial grade AB3 compared to state approved AB3, it's gonna be a huge difference in fines, basically.
But I'm not talking about commercial, I'm talking about.
I understand, but I'm
so-
just telling you that's the difference in those specs. And, when they go into, when they stockpile that stuff, all your bigger material will typically roll to the outside and your fines will be on the inside. They're supposed to mix up the pile before they dump them in the truck, whether they do or not. I mean, they're like anybody else. They're dealing with laborers out there that are trying to do the best you can, but every truck you get is gonna be different.
So I guess my final question to you then is, I don't want to hear that they're doing the best they can. I want to buy rock from a pile, and this is the way KDOT does it. This is a pile that meets their specs. This pile over here does not. Now, I don't care about all that stuff that goes in it or go out of it. I just want to buy stuff that is KDOT approved.
It is all state approved rock. I'm just saying, when you stockpile rock, that's what happens. No matter how every time you work that pile, it
I don't know, talking to you and talking to KDOT is talking to two different types, I'm getting two different answers.
Well,
so-
we're
but that, we'll
talking,
leave it alone.
well, we're talking about state approved rock.
Yes,
It's all state approved rock. But I can tell you, every time you work that pile and you go in there, you're gonna get different gradations of stuff based on the way stockpile works.
I disagree with that, but we'll leave it at that.
Like you asked me last week, you wanted me to follow the advice of an engineer. I'm telling you, as an engineer, that's what happens. And if you want me to bring in an expert, I can tell you that that's what happens.
I talked to some experts too, so that's okay.
Okay, anything else, Brush?
Did you want to talk about that other issue, or?
Well, we had this issue with the storm last weekend. As you explained to us, you and Jesse got together. We're listening to what the forecast said, with us supposed to get another 3 or 4 inches of snow on Monday, which didn't happen. Of course, in the meantime, these roads get packed, they get icy. And, to me, I mean, that's a judgment call from the department. Now, yeah, there was, fortunately, no one that I know of was killed or maimed because of the ice, but we had slick roads. And so, the public, I guess, is demanding something different. I don't know. I haven't had anybody call me and say it was awful, but evidently some of you others have. we don't have access to salt, folks. That's a whole different program. And to sand, you know, of course you can address that, you know, to sand all of those roads, I don't know, you know, we're talking about bus routes. We did get a letter from a school district. We can go sand their bus routes, but I tell you what, if we're gonna do that, we gotta sand 4 other school districts' bus routes. And so that's gonna encompass most of the gravel roads and all of the blacktop roads in this county to cover every school bus route. Is that even a possibility?
Anything's a possibility. I know that we've stockpiled sand like they have normally in the past to take care of, I don't know, to take care of the winter operations regardless of what they are. That's the whole thing. We may get 1 or 2 a year, we may get 12. What we have to do in order to use that sand is we store it inside of there in our building up there to just to keep the direct rain off of it, because if you put that sand and it's froze or it's wet in those spreaders, it plugs them up and you don't do any good either. So, you know, at this point right now, with the facilities we can have, we can only store so much sand. Now, how far does that sand go? Depends on how many places we have to treat, how many times we have to treat.
And then it we treat this the 4 ways pretty heavily. Then you know what happens when it's all dried out. Now we got people complaining that they're sliding across the road because all the sand on it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I wish I had a magic ball every year that could tell me exactly what I would need and whatever else. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about putting sand across all these roads, which the difference between sand on those roads and salt is a huge difference, because the sand really isn't going to. I mean, if you're driving 45, 50 miles an hour, or whatever else on that road there with sand on there, it isn't going to make much difference. You're going to lose control. But as far as treating the bridges, the only way to treat the bridges is some sort of a salt product, because they are at ambient air temperature. Therefore, it's freezing outside, and so are those bridges. The roads will tend to warm up a little bit because they still have ground heat, and therefore they can warm up faster. Plus, they're typically the asphalt roads will get hotter simply because of being a dark color. So
the thing is, I think, you know, we could move toward somehow looking at treating the bridges, but it appears that from what I read from one school district, they're talking about every road that they drive on.
Yeah, it's not feasible. I mean, it only would be with salt. I mean, that would be the only feasible way to do something like that.
Yeah, I've had some calls that one of our commissioners is putting out that his prices fall. Well, I just heard right here that you guys made a decision, you didn't run. Maybe the snow didn't come, I didn't know that. Well, and Bryce, you've only been here X amount of days, months. We bought 3 trucks last year, and we wanted to use them for sand or something. But at the same token, we didn't put a roof over anything out there to store anything. So you can't put, just what you said, you can't put wet sand through a truck, or for freezing sand in that kind of condition. You can't do that. So what is it going to take for this commission to make a decision to authorize us to give us some bids? If that's where we want to go, salt's a whole different ballgame, money-wise, just like you said, Kent. It's money-wise. We didn't put no money in the budget for salt. So we've got, as a commission, got to do that. It's the buck don't stop there at you. It comes right on back to us. And so this commission has to make that decision. And there's some 50-foot cement things out there that sometime through last summer, Jesse and I talked that would make a good base for, just like the state does, puts a round top over something and it stores some of its salt and sand. So I think that's where the commission needs to go, is make some decisions on what we're going to do. It's going to have to be in the budget. We're going to spend some money, and how we're going to do it. So,
Like you said,
Regardless of which way.
we talked about the storage, you know, when the reservoir, when they were putting in the new bridge, we did get those pillars.
that's what I'm talking about.
yeah, they're the old beams.
And we talked about that, you know, somehow those could be used as a side and then put
Yeah.
a canvas to be able to store that. But we've got to get to that point before we can say, oh, now we're gonna buy salt next summer, or whenever
Yeah.
the time is to buy it.
I was getting ready to say, it was
But,
either way,
you know,
sand or salt.
then again, if you bought a brine solution, that's another cost
Yes.
too, because you gotta have pumps and tanks and all that stuff.
Can you even buy a spot load of salt on any given morning?
What's that?
Can you buy a spot load of salt on any given morning?
Probably not, simply
Because
because
I think a lot of them are like our feed, they're booked up and
they're,
maybe at the end of the week, they've got an extra load of feed or
Well,
something.
for
So it'd
the-
be based on their production.
yeah, the biggest thing that we face right now is with wintertime operations is that KDOT basically declares an emergency. So therefore, when they go to get salt, they go to the front of the line, but they pay a premium on it. Some of those guys, if they're sitting there, they may sit there 2-3 days waiting to get loaded from what I've heard. So it's just not like you can call up and get a load of salt.
Well, that's
you know.
what
You
I would
get- yeah.
assume is
Yeah. you
would
get
be
it-
hard to buy any spot loads of salt at a moment's
Yeah,
notice. Or
you basically get it during the summertime, you stockpile it, and then, use it in the fall or wintertime, so.
Bryce,
Yeah.
how many days a year on average do we have icy roads? And this is, not unusual, but it does happen. Now, I've lived in Marion County for over 40 years, and you know this, those are the days you don't go anywhere.
Mhm.
When you
Well,
have to go,
there's-
you go to the highway.
And again, that's the whole thing is, do you plan on 3 occurrences? Do you plan on 6 occurrences? Okay, do you just get snow? Do you get ice? Do you get ice in snow? Do you get, anyway, like I said, they're so fluid, there's no way you
It's
can.
hard to
really-
plan.
Yeah, the only way you could really do it was to build the facilities and carry basically the maximum amount that you could carry. And then as long as you kept it in a dry or, usable situation, you could carry it over into the next year if you didn't use it. So that's the thing is, but then where's the happy medium between, do I bring it in 10,000 tons of salt or do I bring in, 500, so.
Do you have a trigger point to where the snow starts falling, like some of the cities do? They accumulates above 2 inches. They start getting into work here.
What city is that?
Huh?
Marion did, they wait till the next day.
Florida.
Hillsborough does.
On-
If it goes over 2 inches,
Are you sure?
they won't come out unless it's 2 inches.
But then they wait till it quits snowing though.
No, usually they're running at night.
Yeah.
They're running down Main Street, they're pushing it.
Sure.
Yeah.
To answer your question, as far as I know, we don't have a specific depth. A lot of that depends on the fact is, okay, what kind of moisture did you get first? Is it cold enough where it's just straight snow? Much easier to deal with than the ice and the slush, everything below that. But we just make the, looking at the forecast and everything else about to when to go out, to that effect. But obviously too, the other thing you look at is the wind, where if you get 2 inches of snow and a lot of wind, you're gonna get some drifts and, so I mean, it's, like I said, it's just so fluid as to, honestly, we're out, we wanna try to maintain things as well as we can and get them cleaned off. Unfortunately, what hurts us around here is KDOT spoils us, because they're out there 24/7, they're putting down brine, they're putting down salt, because, the upper management as well as, the constituents have said that's what we want. But there is a huge cost to that too, so.
I don't know about Morris and Chase up in Marion, Diane, what they do, but
Their roads were clear.
the bigger counties to the west and to the south, and then Dickinson County, I know.
Even
does
Morris's roads, I mean, they were just, they were out there early, well, during the night, I guess. They scraped off the road and stuff so that it didn't melt and then freeze into the ice that we had. Dickinson was perfectly clear. McPherson was mostly clear. I mean, it had a lot of clear patches. It had some spots. And I'm talking about Tuesday morning, Monday evening, I'm sorry. Monday evening, it was Monday. And so, I mean, they're out there doing their job. We were the only ones that as soon as you crossed our line, it was just a solid sheet of
And
ice.
that's what really stirs a lot of folks up in my areas, which I got the whole south end, Butler County, Harvey County, and then McPherson on the west side, but,
Now, the other thing I don't know about Butler County, but I do know up
Yeah,
north
yeah.
where they were getting, more stuff on Saturday and Sunday. They were out because they were getting more snow and stuff. And obviously, we got hit on the northern part, whatever, how many miles it was up there was worse than what it is everywhere else, so.
And we should have been up there working on those roads and more so than.
It varies from one end of the county, whether it's east to west or north to south, severely. Even the 3-4 winters I pushed snow, I mean, it just amazing how much it could change in 20 miles. Even this last one, There was 8 inches of snow at Harrington, less than 3 at my house, but it rained for almost an hour and a half. It was rain, where the accumulation of snow would have been the same. So we have the same moisture, but it was just pure ice and then ice pellets. So we have 2 inches of accumulation, but it's almost turned to ice at that point. Again, my only option is some of our, like the gravel roads, is try to do anything would have been to almost like dragging from day one, as opposed to, or even push half of it one way and the other to get us a better path down. In the blacktop roads, it was thawing that one afternoon for about 2 hours. And if they'd have rerun them then, would have done some good, even though they were run earlier in the day or the day before. But you had about a 2-hour window where it was slushy enough that you could have took some of it off with just a blade. So
I do know.
again, that's, how do you know that the sun's gonna come out for long enough to start that melt and then have your machine sitting there in that 2-hour window?
Still comes back to judgment call is all it is.
And it's hard to do.
Yeah, I
The
do
rest
know
is take your time, slow down, and be safe.
I do know the trucks were out when it was thawing, Baldwin north to Pilsen and stuff like that. The problem is those plows don't get right down to the asphalt either, because it would just totally wear them out. So I mean, you gotta have that little bit of a gap, and that's what was left, unfortunately. So anyway, I guess, again, when it comes to if and when we get to that point, we'll have to determine, as fast as we can what we're gonna do, and hopefully try to get ahead of it. I wish I could say that.
Well, I just think that, the buck stops with you when it comes to that, and I think we as a commission need to support you. When it comes to judgment calls, probably 50% of the time we're gonna be wrong, but that's just because of judgment calls.
Let's go one step further. Are we gonna provide the man with salt and sand, or are we gonna sit here and say, well, it's a judgment call?
Well, I think we need to look at next budget time. It's gonna be real hard to do that right now,
Well,
because like I said, you can't even
essentially,
get a load of
yeah,
salt.
essentially, it's impossible right now to try to get everything worked up, find a
Right.
storage place, stuff to that effect. But, now the other thing that, and I don't know whether it's even a possibility, is that maybe I could contact KDOT to see how they're doing on salt. I don't know if that's ever happened in the past, to where the problem is if the amount of salt we're gonna need compared to what they need, because they're gonna say the first thing is, well, we have to maintain our salt. So,
Well, could we even possibly ask them if we could buy brine from them? Evidently, they've got a brine making
well,
system.
they do.
Right, would require us to have all different equipment.
Exactly. We'll now have to get the brine spreaders and.
Right, I understand that, but,
Well,
But that only does good if you put it down.
if that's what,
before-
if that's what the
rain.
public wants, public's gonna have to pay for it.
well,
I'm
and
not in
here's the-
favor of brine anyway,
Because that
shape or
would've-
form. When
that would've
ice is
washed
there,
off
dump the
your
salt
road.
and be done with
Yeah.
it.
Brine is another thing, like I talked before, is sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You get rain ahead of time, it washes it all off, and there's nothing left. But it also deals with, there's times where you start melting the ice, whatever else, and you get snow back on top of it. Well, now you shot yourself. It's like I said, there is just no Gantt chart or any organizational chart that tells you this. It's just all over the place. So it's like you said, it's a judgment call, and
Each storm's different.
yeah.
And so I always said, right from this deal that happened on this particular storm that we had, the very first one. So, what my big deal was that there was no sand put out, or what little sand was put out was actually a waste of time. All the fuel that it took and the hours that they spent to put just a scoop or two here really was not effective. And I do agree with the judgment call, I got that, I understand that entirely. But when it goes into 3 days, now like the first day, when it turned into ice and didn't get out there soon enough, or whatever happened, judgment call, we goofed. But we should have been out there then right away to fix that, instead of letting it go into 3 days. That's where I say we failed.
Okay.
For sure.
I guess I would ask, but fix it by how?
Sand, scraping it, whatever you need. How do the other counties do it?
They were out
They
doing all
do
of the
it with
four-ways.
salt. Sand will do nothing for
Well,
melting
it
that
seems
ice.
awful odd to me that all these years, we've never had salt, but we had lots of sand, and I don't know that we've had this type of a problem at intersections with no sand, nothing.
If you go out to Remington right now, going north, there's a pile of sand out there enough right now, you probably slide right down to 56.
See, I don't find that to be a real big issue right now. I'm talking about when we have ice, and I'm looking at this letter from Center School. And this is serious when you do have our kids out there on these roads that are horrible like that. Or, I think they said they missed several days of school because of it.
why they have
Either
snow
way,
days.
I'm sorry?
They have snow days built in.
Honestly,
When the
I
other
don't think
schools don't have it, that's not the answer. The answer is we need to be doing our job. The answer is we need to provide safety for our children and our residents. That's the answer.
That's why I alluded back to, if we're gonna start spreading, we've gotta cover every bus route in this county. Every one of them.
And again,
And why
my
would that
point,
not be a priority?
it's, the priority is not necessarily for schools. I'm 110% behind you there. It's a priority for everybody else. But again, if it's ice underneath there, there's nothing that my blades or my sand will do that's gonna get rid of that, down to the asphalt.
Right, you'd have to take the asphalt with it.
Exactly. I could put a blade out there, I could take an inch of asphalt off the top, the patches and everything else, and then we'd have to worry about that when we were done. That's what I'm getting at, is the fact is, if it's snow, whatever else out there, we can take care of that. It's the ice and stuff down below that causes the problem. And again, when the snow is out there and it melts, you know, this time of year when it freezes and thaws, that's what I deal with. You know, and as far as treating, you know, the gravel routes or whatever else, I've never heard of that. But if that's what you want me to do, that's what I can do.
I don't know that anybody said necessarily gravel.
Well, but you said treat all their haul roads,
This-
which
the
is
school
their
routes.
school routes.
There's,
And their
um,
school routes.
And I would think,
There's
that a majority of
intersections and
centers'
things like that.
bus routes are on gravel roads.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, Peabody and everybody else can do the same way. They give us a list every year for their bus routes, both dry and wet. And we
Okay.
go out every year and we make sure that they're in good shape to start off the year.
Okay.
So, but again, I mean, if you want me to solve a rock road, then,
So they have
Need more trucks.
gravel and they also have the hard tops as well. And you know
Oh, yeah.
that. Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't know that in this letter they specified the rock roads.
They said
Yeah.
their bus route.
yeah. And so then it comes up to this, okay, which ones do you want us to treat, which ones don't you? I mean, it's, like I said, it's just,
What is the difference really in cost off the top of your head between sand and salt? I'm almost just in a conversation saying we need to just get salt. I would not be in favor of brine. I mean, that's ridiculous. That would send us into Mars in the budget. But salt might be reachable. How much is salt?
depends on when
Versus
you get
sand?
it.
Give me an idea.
At this point, I don't know, but like I said, most time people get it. Now, if I remember right, Tom Hollop said that you guys discussed it last year, and it may have been that same time, that KDOT puts down 800 pounds per mile, I believe he said, of salt. And that is, I think that was just for one lane, so you'd have to double it. So you're talking 1,600 pounds per mile. And I don't know what kind of, because there's several different grades of salt. There's the fine, medium, coarse, whatever else.
They're mixing it with sand, don't they, KDOT?
Well, I think.
They mix theirs, don't they?
I think KDOT was just going straight, and I think a lot of theirs could be the same thing too, is what are they trying to get rid of? You know, obviously, if you want it to melt fast, you go straight with salt. You know, I mean, to solve the issue, I can come back with all kinds of numbers for you to determine what's what and things like that as far as storage and everything else, but.
I
No.
don't know that that's necessary just yet. We gotta have it built first.
Yeah.
We're using
That's-
time.
that's-
Yeah.
I think look and see if that's a possibility of putting up a round top using the
Get some product, find out what
structures that we
those-
have.
Yeah,
But still.
I mean, yeah,
Not
we've
this year,
got
we can't.
those big beams.
Yeah, like I said, we can't really do anything until you got a place to store it.
Can't we just buy plastic tarps? I've seen that over some stuff too. I don't know where you buy
Well, you
that.
still have to have a hoop barn.
Yeah, it's
Well, no, I've seen them just covered like they
Well-
do the bales and stuff. They just have
But the
plastic
problem,
over
but
top
the
of it.
problem with that is, now you're gonna go in there and you're gonna have to pull back the tarp, to load or unload it. The other thing is those tarps will still have the possibility, I mean, they have the sun and everything else, you know, once it starts leaking, then you know.
Yeah, you create condensation from the ground up.
Yep. So, I guess, you know, for the near future, I mean, I can try to come up with some ideas of what those numbers would be, but, I can also contact KDOT to see, but I just, so.
Get an idea what you can do on two farms and see, I mean, that's what they use right now, but, you know, it's either that versus that or a big building that's using theirs. plenty of them too, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's usually rots the building away.
Well, you just,
Trying to do
yeah,
that.
when you start dealing with salt, you basically have to put a concrete enclosure all the way around. And it has to be, sealed and stuff like that. Salt, and that's, of course, that's the other thing too, is you start salting things, now you have to worry about, corrosion on your concrete bridges. So you'll have to go back in the spring and clean them off and wash them off and, so, like I said, there's pros or cons to everything.
Yeah, or just get down to the rebar eventually and start causing all.
Especially on the ones that are already cracked and stuff. But again, you just gotta go back when you're done, but you think you're done, it's blow them off, wash them off. You hopefully get some rains, we'll wash them off, but that's, still something. But anyway.
Might even be a KDHE factor on storing that salt. as
Well,
far as I know.
that's, everybody has to have their stuff, so.
This a road issue?
Yeah.
Why would I ask?
I just want to go on record, though, of saying that go back to March 25th, a letter from KDOT. Diane did her homework. She had a state inspector from Salina write a letter saying that Harshman has 2 piles of rock at the Florence. One is KDOT approved, and one is a mixture of the state-approved rock. And they also have a vein that is not state-approved, and they mix that. And that, yes, so as Mr. Harshman is telling you, it's state-approved. Some of it in that rock pile is state-approved, but not all of it is. So I think, this is my opinion, you need to go back and look at that letter. It's a statement that actually someone brought down, and look at it instead of just my opinion or their opinion, but there are 2 piles there.
Good.
So, because when that happened, and Mr. Dahlke said we thought we were always buying state approved, within the next couple of weeks, there was no more rock to be bought from Harshman for a while.
Okay.
When we made that statement that we were only buying state approved. So I don't know, Mr.
Yeah,
Dole.
yeah.
I'm just telling you,
Sure,
that's the
that's-
research.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've been looking into this for quite a while. So for those of you that haven't been on the board, welcome to those kind of things. You need to go back and review it. But it was on March 25th of 2019. Diane presented a letter from a state inspector out of Salina from KDOT.
Did you have a name of who that was by chance?
I don't have the letter in front of me
have
because I
it.
wasn't
I
bringing
didn't
this
bring it
up.
with me,
So
but I can dig it back.
No, that's fine, I'm sure they have.
so
it.
anyway, so go back into your,
Yeah. Okay.
the video.
The video archive.
Do that too.
Okay.
I would hope that Mr. Harshman would not sell us anything but state-approved rock. I mean, he sat right here and told us that.
We're just hoping.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going by, so I mean, we've
Well,
got this
and-
letter.
And technically, he is selling you state-approved rock. I'm not
Mixers,
questioning
right.
his ethics, but he is but the guy that came from Salina, the state inspector said there are 2 piles. One is, and he said they will not buy that combination. It is not, there is some in it, but
Right.
not enough.
Right.
And the other one, there is a very limited amount.
Good.
As they called that other pile, the commercial rock, I believe.
Okay.
That was here.
And that was cheaper rock, yes.
Okay, anything else, Brian?
Nope, that's it.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
thanks.
Okay, Sharon Homestead here.
Yep. Come on in.
I think it's Tom's necklace. Thanks.
Morning, Sharon.
Morning, Sharon.
And just some department business, an update on where the department is at. This is a summary of kind of some open files in our office.
Open files, you want to explain some of this? Well, that's much too many, or brief, I don't, you can explain what this.
Okay, so some of the permitting that we do are for new buildings, new residential structures, new accessory structures, lot splits, wastewater systems, water wells, planning commission items. It does show one there, but that's not on the agenda yet until February probably. And then violations or complaints. Most of these files are open for several months at a time. A new build may take a year to a year and a half to complete, if it's a residence and a wastewater system starting from the ground up. So these are all things that we keep track of. This is our activity tracker. Just kind of helps us stay up to date with the status of the different projects that are going on.
So you're saying you have 146 projects in process right now? Is that what this is telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We have a more detailed list with that Excel spreadsheet. We keep the numbers and the parcel and what's going on and our status on each of those projects.
Some of those probably stay in process for a certain period of time anyway, don't they, before they actually drop off of this list.
Yes.
Do they have a renewal period for their permit if they extend too long?
Typically, depending on what the situation is, if they request an extension, we can give them a 1-year extension. If the project isn't able to be completed within that amount of time, we usually have them either reapply for a new permit or drop the permit. It becomes invalid if they tell us that their project is not going to proceed. Any other questions about that? Okay. The next thing we have, our Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals will meet again in January on the 23rd, should be the 4th Thursday of the month. You should all receive an agenda before that by email. If you ever have any questions about what's on the agenda or you would like to attend, please feel free to do that. My email typically comes out as a group message to each of you, so please don't respond to that. But if you respond to me individually, I'd be happy to answer any questions. The new, I guess not new, the Planning Commission will look a little differently after the first of the year. Your board has moved to have 11 members on that board, and I know that some of how that will work is still in progress, possibly. I think you're working with Brad on that. I'd like for you to take a look at this. This is an application maybe for potential.
Oh, I think that's, I already put that on the
Okay.
table, unless you
Yeah.
changed it.
Does everybody have one of those?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that is for the at-large person. The way I read it, I may be wrong.
There's a district applying for it, and then they would have to put at large or district 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Okay, I thought, as I read the minutes, I thought it said for the at-large has to put it in
I
thick.
think that could be used for any.
Yeah, I think it could be
yeah.
used for any of them.
It could be, but I don't know that it has to be, but I know for the at-large is what the minutes said. I thought, I'll go back and reread that, but I thought.
I think the board can decide if they want, if you want your people that are in your area that are interested in it to fill out an application,
I've
it
had 2
wouldn't
people
necessarily hurt
contact me
anything.
already.
And then you would be able to review their information and make a decision based on what.
I think it'd be nice to have a standardized document that, everybody can look at.
I mean, I think you could do it however you want. I believe when the action that you've already taken, you did say that the at-large position would have an application.
Yeah, I think that's where, that's what I remember, because that would be something everybody would be considering.
Right.
But I can kind of remember 1 or 2 people.
But for any new member, this would be good for the office to have, I'm guessing, wouldn't it, Sharon? To have that type of information.
Will your board be voting on those who are appointed?
That's the part Brad's still checking on.
Okay,
We
I
know for
think it
sure
would
the one
be-
at large is, but not
Right.
the 2 by 2.
Individual districts. Okay, I could see where it would be especially handy for your board if you'll be voting on all of the
Yeah.
appointees.
Someone want to make a motion that we move to adopt the application for Marion County Planning and Zoning Board as a standardized application for any new or at-large member to complete.
Do you think that's necessary, really? And when would we be doing this? We're supposed to have them appointed by the end of the year, I think, right? Usually because the new board takes their seat in January, or they would be acclimated, started to that in
Well,
January.
I think even if we have an appointee, they could fill this out at any point.
I see the benefit of this is so Randy knows somebody in my district and he hands him the application and then that way he gets it back around that way.
We can also put something out on our website and social media that says if you're interested in volunteering for this board, and if we had a list of what their duties are, we could put this out there and then they could turn this in and we could put a deadline on it of when it would need to be submitted for,
I think it's a good way to use the website.
it's a potential tool that you all could use if you want to.
So I guess my problem by doing that would be, because if you're gonna do it kind of all bulk, like suppose somebody in Randy's district puts in 2 or 3 of these, okay? But yet maybe he has in mind somebody that he asks, that he would like, that he feels is more qualified. Then the board gets involved, that who he feels more qualified, is like, oh, well, you got all these other people here, I like this guy instead.
We're just
I
voting on
think
his,
that kinda
we're just
takes
voting on
away-
his nominees. So, not,
I'm just saying that, so I wouldn't want to open up that type of can of worms either, to where things get convoluted from allowing the commission here to make their appointment. And I can see what would go to that.
I thought it meant we were just voting on the ones that you nominated, that we approved who you nominated. The other 4 people.
And that's the way I believe that
Yeah.
would be too. So if
Yes.
I was going to appoint.
So the other
I'm
4
sorry.
people had anything to do with it.
It's just a matter of whether you would find this a useful tool in evaluating the people that are in your area that you want to nominate.
And coming back, say, what Brad says, yeah, one at large is fine, but the other ones are just straight appointed. Is there anything wrong with getting these apps, or do they have to be turned back at the courthouse? I mean, or could they turn them in at my office and I can
Yeah.
deliver it?
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I think that maybe Brad could advise you on that. But to
Yeah.
me, if it's gonna depend on your process, really.
Yeah, I just,
The processes before is each one was brought a name in. We said, based on our expertise in knowing this person, that's who we recommend, and it's always been accepted that way.
And I like that, because, your people in your district voted you and trusted you to make decisions for them in your district. And that's the way we've always done it, and I liked it that way.
I'm just saying, I thought this might be handy for the office to have over there if they needed to, maybe they'd never refer to it, I don't know.
Another benefit of that may be that if a certain district has several people who would like to apply for that position,
Then you'd have
then
a
you have
record
some
of
left
that.
over for an at-large position if that isn't filled.
it also provides, say one gets selected, it also provides you with their phone number, their
Well, she
email.
gets that anyway.
Well,
And it also lists what some of the, like the civic boards and things that they've been on, so that's a little bit of background that would be helpful to myself and other board members.
We'd like to make a motion that we use this as our standardized application for planning and zoning board membership.
Second.
And could either be deposited back, emailed back to the courthouse or to any commissioner.
Does it have to be emailed?
Or broad.
Yes. No.
Rule me out.
So it could be submitted.
Submitted, yeah, I'm sorry.
So then that would need to go on the county website.
Yes, that's the way to advertise it.
Can I reread your motion back?
Yeah, try to.
Just a second.
I was good with just stopping it. It's a standard form.
Okay, so what I have is a motion to use this as the standardized application for planning and zoning board membership. And it can be submitted either to the courthouse or to an individual commissioner.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's your motion, Dave?
Yes.
Randy, you second it?
Diane seconded.
Diane seconded it. Any other discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now,
Okay.
one question now. Have we ever officially decided what happens to the people that's already switching areas now? I mean,
I think that's part of what Brad's working on, the
Okay.
transition
Okay.
type.
They stay on.
I've had a couple of board members ask me that. They're kind of wondering if they're still on board or if they'll be booted off the board or what's happening, so.
I guess I'll find out when we make the decision.
well, yeah, that's what whether they stay, like me, I'm losing two. One goes to both sides of me here. And so,
I'm gonna keep mine that you gave me, thank you.
well, they're both good people, and so I'm just saying, who they represent to make that legal, whether they represent,
Serve out the terms.
even though they're not living in my area now.
Yeah.
So, to serve out their terms.
All right.
But legally, you don't have to if you don't want to. Yeah, I mean, if Mr. Crowfoot doesn't want to keep that person, he doesn't have to.
I'm not sure about that. I mean,
No, that, I confirmed that with Brad, he doesn't have to because it is a governing body appointment. So you can, you don't have to if you don't wish, but it's nice that you wish to do that, but you don't have to.
Anything else, Sharon?
I don't have anything else to report,
Okay.
anything else.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Jay?
Jay, you had to sit a while.
That's
I don't know if,
perfect.
I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself, but Mr. Hall is the senior counsel for KAC, and I think a lot of you have met him, maybe some of you haven't. We'll let you expound on that, Jay.
All right, well, like Commissioner Becker said, I'm Jay Hall. I'm the general counsel for KAC as well as the legislative policy director. So I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the invitation and your hospitality and having me come down. Want to talk about a couple of things that KAC is doing, and then want to talk about a couple other things just in listening to the conversations here this morning. First of all, KAC, obviously, we've got our new executive director who hopefully, for those of you that were at the annual conference, were able to hopefully chat with him. We are planning on possibly doing some regional suppers in February, and so we'll get more information about that out as soon as we get those dates and the educational topics solidified on that. But we are looking at doing that in February if we can get the dates and locations nailed down, and he will be at those. So if you haven't had a chance to interact with him before, hopefully you can make it to those regional suppers and have a chance to interact with him there. In addition, the local government day at the state capitol will be on January the 22nd. You'll probably see some information coming out about that here very shortly. If you haven't already, I think it's already on our website, but that information will be coming out in conjunction with Local Government Day. We'll also be having an open house to show off our new offices. As some of you know, we are in the process of moving. I'm actually not even in the office today because we are in the process of having all of our desks and everything moved to our new location. So we actually won't be open in our new offices until next Thursday after the new year. But in preparation for that and hopefully to give people familiarity with where we are hosting people at our new office location on January 22nd, and then we'll have our local government day events in conjunction with that. So we look forward to hopefully having everyone come by and see our offices and then talk to some of the legislators about things that are important to county officials throughout the state later that evening. So those are the main two things I wanted to talk about with reference to KAC and kind of what we're doing. I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that I always talk about when I talk to commissioners, and that's just the process of how you go through decision making, because I'm a big process guy. I come from a regulatory background. I also come from a banking background, so those two things are very heavily process driven. I mean, always know that when you're dealing with regulations, when you're dealing with banking, that it's all about the process you took to go to the decision. Because as some of you mentioned today, you can't always be right with the decision that you made. I mean, if we just try to be right, you never necessarily know how the things that are outside your control will turn out. So you can't always guarantee that the decision you made will be the right decision or the most popular decision, but you can guarantee that you follow a good process to get to that decision. So that's really what I try to talk about, because for you as commissioners, you're making these policy decisions on a day-to-day basis, and you want to make those decisions going through the best possible process so that maybe the decision didn't work out this time for this factor or this factor, but if you follow a good process, you will be right far more often than you will be wrong, simply because that process that you used to make the decision was a good process. And so the first thing you want to think about when you're making that process is, are you getting the information that you need in order to make a process? And when I talk about information, I'm talking about things like costs, things like how it will be effective, things like what the real problem is. I mean, if the problem is that something is happening too quickly, is that being caused because you don't have the right product, or because somebody's not doing something quickly enough, or because you need more personnel? I mean, you have to figure out what the root cause is before you can find the solution to that problem, because just saying, well, this is happening, so we're going to throw this Band-Aid on this particular issue, doesn't necessarily solve your problem. And if you do that, you're going to be employing a poor process to get to the decision that you make. And if you employ a poor process, you will more likely than not have poor results. So the first step, obviously, is you want to make sure that when you're making those decisions, you have identified what the problem is and what is causing that problem, so that you can then strike at that problem rather than just treating the symptoms, as they say. So that's really important when you are analyzing the process. The second thing you want to do is you want to make sure and take out any sort of bias that you have. I mean, we all have personal biases. We have those gut feelings that I think this works, I think that works. And that's where information becomes really important, because you may say, oh, well, I think this works because we've done it this way and I feel comfortable that this works. Well, what if you're wrong? That's always the problem that we encounter. It's like, you know what you've done before and it's worked okay, but what if that's not the best way? You have to always approach it with an open mind of saying, okay, we've done this before, it's worked okay, but is there a better way? And you want to make sure that the process that you're employing in making decisions removes the bias of, this is what we've done and it's worked well, or they did this 15, 20 years ago and it didn't work, so we can't ever try that again. You want to make sure you're employing a process that takes out the bias of, this has been done in the past and it worked well or it didn't work well, and make sure that you're analyzing things in a way that gives you the information that says, hey, actually, with our current situation, this thing that we did 25 years ago, if we do it this way instead, that's our best solution. So make sure you're using the information in a way that can help you by removing the biases that you might have just naturally from things you're comfortable with or things you're familiar with, and really getting all of that information. And then the final thing with the process is just always robust discussion. Be open to people disagreeing and maybe not having thought of everything. I tell people, when I used to be in banking, I always told my employees, I was like, look, if you come to me and you think you have a better idea than what I have, come into my office, we'll talk about it. I may agree with you, I may disagree with you, but it's not, if I disagree, it's not because you necessarily had a bad idea or because I don't like your idea. It may just be there are reasons why we have to do things the way we're doing them. But you also may have a great idea that I hadn't thought of before, because I'm not the king of ideas here. I don't have every idea that's ever been thought of. And so you want to make sure that you're open to that discussion. Just like I talked about with removing bias, you want to make sure that you're always open to discussion, because when you are going through the process of making decisions, the discussion is part of the decision, because maybe you have a really good idea, but you hadn't quite thought of one of those problems that could come up if you employ the particular idea that you had. And somebody else says, well, what about this? And then you think about it, and maybe you don't change your idea, but maybe you can make that idea a little bit better by just listening to a little bit of that constructive criticism and thinking about that in a little different way. So those are kind of the three things that I really emphasize, because the process of decision making is probably more important than the actual decisions that you make, because you have all of these various factors that go into all of your decisions and how the decision actually turns out. I grew up playing basketball, and we always would talk about, hey, take good shots all the time. You always want to take good shots. Well, the thing is, not every shot's going to go in, even if it is a good shot. But if you take good shots, if you say, you know what, I'm open, I've practiced this shot, I can make this shot. Maybe you make it, maybe you miss it. But if you take good shots, you'll make more than you miss. But if you're always if you're thinking about, well, I don't know if this shot's going to go in, you're probably going to miss that shot anyway. And it's the same thing with decision making. If you are saying, well, I don't know if this decision's going to turn out right or not, well, that's probably a good step towards making the wrong decision. But if you say, well, we're going to follow this process and we're going to go through these things in order to make these decisions, if you follow a good process, you have a much, much better chance of making good decisions. So I would just encourage you to continue with your discussions, and I heard some good discussion here this morning, so I just encourage you to continue with that. Make sure you're continuing to get good information, because that'll definitely help you continue to make good decisions that'll help the people of Marion County. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about either the KAC or about the upcoming legislative session, or anything else that you have that's a concern.
Any hot button issues you're gonna be lobbying from the get-go on this year, Jay?
The big thing that we are going to be looking at legislatively is there's some talk that the tax committee on the Senate side will be introducing a couple dozen potential new tax bills. I don't know what all of those are, but if they intend to introduce a lot of new tax policy, I can anticipate that we will be working very, very hard on tax policy, because obviously for everyone that's involved in county government, tax policy is going to have a large effect, because counties obviously are the tax collectors. And so even if it's not a thing that directly affects tax rates or anything like that, if it affects how taxes are collected, that's also going to affect counties. And so I'll be keeping a very close eye on that.
Make sure the tax lid is part of it.
Yeah.
And again, with the tax lid, I don't know what they're going to introduce. Some people in the legislature are in favor of removing the tax lid. There are others that want to add additional restrictions to the tax lid. So you've got kind of both sides of that. It may be more prudent to pursue the status quo for right now, simply because opening it up, we may get it removed, but we may also have it end up being more restrictive depending on which one of those two groups wins out. So we may look at maintaining the status quo, at least for right now, because I know that there are some people that have a lot of influence on those tax committees that are in favor of putting in more restrictions. And so I'm very careful with that, because I know that they have things that they would like to do that I don't think are in the best interest of county government, as far as being even more restrictive, because then that affects how you're able to make decisions. And I mean, already this morning you had a pretty good discussion about roads and what you can or can't do with roads, depending on how much money you put into that project. But obviously, if the tax lid is even more restrictive, you'd be even more restrained on what you may be able to do in that capacity.
Can you touch on I remember seeing you at KAC, you were talking about home rule.
Yes. Sure. So one of the things that we are talking about is the potential for having home rule power for county governments constitutionally recognized. So right now it's only in statute, and it has about 37, 38 restrictions on it in statute. We'd like to have it be constitutional, because it's a little bit more predictable, and predictable government is probably the best form of government, because obviously for your citizens, if they know what your authority is as a county, then they can come to you as a county and say, this is what we want because you have this authority to do this or do that. And so they understand where that authority is. On the other hand, they also know, your constituents would also know at that point, these are the things we go to the state for because we need this uniform law and the uniformity of it needs to go to the state level. Local issues come to local government. So the predictability is good for your constituents. It's also good for when you look to be drawing businesses to your local communities and drawing more people into your communities, because that predictability lets people know that this is a stable place where I can move and raise my family or open my business or whatever that may be, and that stability is incredibly valuable. Stability and predictability are probably two of the best characteristics of a government, because if you have that clarity of what's going on at the governmental level, who has the ability to make the decisions, who you need to talk to about decisions, because what frustrates people more than calling a governmental agency and getting transferred 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 times before they can talk to the right person? Well, it's the same thing when you deal with levels of government, where it's like, well, do I need to talk to the federal government? Do I need to talk to the state? Do I need to talk to the city? Do I need to talk to the county? When those things become more clear and it says, well, for a county issue, you have to talk to the county commission. When that is clear, people are a lot less frustrated because they know they need to talk to the 5 of you. Versus, well, really, we can't do anything as the county commission. You really need to talk to the state about this. Or you need to talk to this person about this because we don't really have the authority to do that. When that's confusing to the average citizen, they get really frustrated. So we would really like to have that constitutional rule so that we have that clarity, so that citizens know this local issue, the county commission has the authority to deal with that, and so you go to your county commission. It's also important because obviously every county is different. I mean, you had some discussion today about all of the different surrounding counties and what they've done with snow removal and things like that. Well, it's not just snow removal that makes all the counties different. It's some of everything. And so just having the ability to have the 5 of you make decisions for Marion County versus having to see what other counties are doing and get a lot of different people involved, it makes it a lot easier for your local citizens if they know, okay, my county commissioner that I elected has the authority to do this because this is a Marion County specific issue. This doesn't have anything to do with McPherson County. This doesn't have anything to do with Butler County or Dickinson County or any of these others. This is Marion County specific. And so for Marion County specific issues, I come to these 5 people and they can help deal with my problem. And that's what constitutional home rule would give us, is just that predictability, that local control that really allows each community to make decisions that best benefit their community.
Will you be putting some information out? Because I think you're probably going to try to, guys, I think I heard you say put it on the ballot,
Yes.
if possible. So are you going to be putting some information out to give us guidelines on where those lines are drawn from county decision-making versus the state?
Yes, so I'm putting something together actually right now that I'm hoping to put on our, rollout onto our website after the new year when we get back into the office, that you'll have kind of some more information on that. I'm also putting something together about dark store theory that you may have heard about, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment, so that you just have that information, because one of the functions of KAC is just to get you as much information as possible. Because again, when you're talking about making those good decisions, having as much information as possible is what we're really there for, is to provide you with that information so that as you make your decisions, you have as much information as possible to make the best decision for your community. All right, so I kind of teased the dark story.
Yeah, go ahead. We've got taxpayers here that don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Dark store theory is what has happened in a lot of the larger metropolitan areas, not just here in Kansas, but also throughout the country, is that a lot of what they call the big box stores, so your Walmarts and your Costco's and your Home Depots and Menards and those types of stores, have gone through the tax appeal process and said that rather than valuing their building as an operating storefront. It should be valued as if it was a vacant storefront and taxed as such. The problem that we at KAC have with that particular theory is that that really shifts the tax burden from those commercial buildings back onto the residential taxpayer, because as you guys know from dealing with the budgets, your mill levy is set based on you need to raise a certain amount of money, and so you set your mill levy based on that. Well, if you are cutting the values on commercial properties, who's paying to make up that difference? Residential taxpayers. And so that's really the issue that we have with the dark store theory, is that it shifts that burden from big box stores to folks that have their homes here in our communities. The other issue that we have with that is that it's trickling down from the big box stores to also your smaller storefronts like your Dollar Generals and your Walgreens and things. So what was an issue for Johnson and Riley and Wyandotte and Sedgwick and Shawnee counties is now trickling into a lot of our other communities. And if it has not arrived here in Marion County yet, it is coming. And so we're really trying to get ahead of it at KAC and make sure that we are, make sure that, again, we're providing information, but also two, working with the legislature to make sure that they understand that issue, that as they look at things like dark store theory, that they understand that shifts the tax burden from commercial to residential.
What is KAC's stance on that, though? To leave it as a commercial building and tax people at a commercial rate when it's sitting empty, or are we gonna? Is there some other way to do this?
We're really talking about valuation, because what happens is Walmart or a big box store will have their building that'll be open, and they will be running customers through there 7 days a week. And they say, well, you really shouldn't tax this building at $1 million, because if this building were not open, it would only be worth $300,000. So you really should only tax me at the $300,000 rate. And of course, ignoring the fact that they spent $500,000 for the land because it was a good plot of land there, and ignoring the fact that they spent $500,000 or $600,000 to erect the building, they say, well, really, it's not worth all of that money that we put into it. Really, it's worth the $300,000 that it would be worth if it were a vacant building. And that's really what we're trying to get away from, because again, saying that instead of having this building taxed at $1 million, it's only going to be taxed at $300,000 or $400,000.
But it's not vacant.
Exactly.
It's not vacant.
But they're making the argument that they want it to be taxed as if it were vacant, because one day it might be vacant.
Because tomorrow it could be. They're saying tomorrow it could be.
We've got the perfect example here in Marion County, the Pizza Hut. It's set up here valued at $295,000 or $94,000, I think. Sat there for 3 years, could not sell because it was valued so high. So that's what I'm saying. If you leave them up there and value it that high, and this is just Marion, I mean, but in the bigger towns, you have a better chance of somebody coming in and running people through the doors, what Marion does.
And that is one of the challenges, is there are definitely places where maybe if a building has been vacant for, maybe if a building is vacant, maybe it isn't worth, maybe it should be devalued as it has been vacant. But if it's still an active storefront, it should be valued as if it were vacant. I mean, because then you're saying, well, it's really not worth anything, because, I mean, we hear in real estate all the time, it's location, location, location. The location's not worthless. The part of the value is in the location. The building and the money you spent to build that building is not worthless. I mean, because you wouldn't have poured the money into it if you didn't think it had value. And so those are really the things that we're trying to look at, is saying, well, you wouldn't have spent $500,000 on the land if you really only thought it was worth $300,000, because people don't do that. That's not good business. People don't spend $1 million building something if they think, oh, well, this facility is really only gonna be worth $500,000. Like, you don't pour that kind of money into a project that you believe to be not valuable. And that's really what we're looking at when we deal with Dollar Store is, as you are pouring this money into these projects and into these plots of land, they should be valued that way. And that doesn't mean that maybe for a vacant building that's been vacant for 4 or 5 years, then, okay, yes, the value should be adjusted to account for the fact that, well, we can't sell it for this. Well, if you can't sell it for that, it's probably not worth that. But if you just sold it for, yeah, but if you just sold it
They
for,
said 3 years.
yeah, but if you sold it for $500,000, you can't then turn around and say, well, really, you should only tax me at $250 because it's vacant right now. Because if you just bought it for $500, you believed somewhere in your mind at that time that it was worth $500.
And some sort of time limit or something, I
Right.
agree.
And so
Yeah.
that's what we're really looking at, is that if you can sell it for this amount, then it has to be worth
Or if
that.
it's generating so
Yeah,
much
or if it's-
income.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because Walmart, I mean, they have algorithms, that, I mean, all these big stores have algorithms that they use to say, no, we don't want to be located on this corner, we want to be located on this corner because this corner isn't as valuable as this corner. And, yeah, they all have those.
These are not new theories.
No, they're
And
not new
there's
theories at
a
all.
ton of tax attorneys out there that just love making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year appealing these things.
Yeah, I mean, none of it is new theories, it's just, they have this idea that says, we'd like to have lower taxes and this is how we think we should have lower taxes. Well, we just disagree because we say, really, that's not just lowering your taxes, that's shifting the burden from a commercial property onto the folks that live in residential properties, because you can't say, well, I have a 4-bedroom house, but I only use 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, it's
And
worth half as
so
much.
it should be worth half that because I really don't use the other 2 bedrooms. I mean, because then we're just talking about, again, shifting the taxes around. Because it doesn't lower the Marion County budget at all. It doesn't change that. It just means that instead of your mill levy being what it is, you have to tack 5 or 6 more mills onto your mill levy to make up that difference. And who's paying that expense? That's your residential folks.
Anything else you got for us, Jay? Appreciate you coming down.
I don't have anything else. I appreciate your hospitality and having me come down. I look forward to hopefully running into any of you at the State House or in Topeka.
What's your address?
Our new address will be 715 Southwest 10th Street, still there in Topeka. And the zip will be, I want to say 66603.
You're still in walking distance of the Capitol, aren't you?
Yeah, we're about
4 blocks.
3 or 4 blocks away from the Capitol now, so I can still walk over there, but it's a little bit further just because we're a little bit further down 10th Street now, but still not very far.
Okay. Well, again, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to you as well.
Thank you.
Okay, is Brian Freeze here?
Yes.
Morning.
Brian?
It's my turn.
Yep.
Let's see.
It ought to be by now.
Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
I believe there was a contract submitted in the packet for RNS Digital Services with no changes.
Same pricing as last year. When was it last done? When was it last
An
month?
annual contract.
Yeah.
Is this the same company you've been using for?
Yes, this is
It's not for
probably
3 years.
2009, 2012, I think, right?
It was a yearly fee. Yeah, it's a yearly fee.
Is your cost compared to last year?
It's the same, as far as I could see. I thought,
It's the same cost, right?
That's what I was told.
So explain a little bit to me, just off the top of your head, what this service does. I'm pretty much familiar, but I just want you to kind of reiterate a little bit.
Arnest Digital, they host our GIS, or our Geographical Informational Systems and data. There's a website for us in-house to use. And then they also do the changes such as the splits and combinations and everything like that that comes through agricultural changes that we have.
Well, it says it right here.
This isn't a process that we would ever look at doing in-house type.
I don't know for sure on that. That would probably take a lot more computer-wise. More skill set. I'd have to pay salary.
Yeah. And this company's been satisfactory.
They have to.
Haven't heard of complain, haven't heard you guys complain about it.
So since it's the same as last year, do they not improve or upgrade or do anything different, or no options, or we don't need any differences, or this is all they have to offer?
Good question. I think it's a base plan on the contract for basic services. There are charges or fees for other charges that are needed, but I'm not sure what those costs are.
Okay.
Yeah, per parcel is 25. Agricultural review is $2. Subdivision is 10 per lot.
So this is the digital mapping portion, and this is the same company that does the planning and zoning digital mapping and the county clerk's tax unit mapping. So,
They're the ones that do the flyovers.
no, that's pictometry.
Oh.
But this is like parcel specific and mapped off of the deeds and so forth for the parcel boundaries and tax units and et cetera.
Has a little more data on layers, such as lot size.
Right.
Whereas the pictometry is more for viewing. And it's also, pictometry also creates record as we do flyovers in your.
Do you guys have a contract separate for the whole program?
Well,
This is with the appraiser's office.
right, the appraisers has their own, and I think planning and zoning pays their own maintenance. I have not had to pay maintenance so far.
Well, what else, sir?
But we just have it for tax unit map and that's it, so that's updated when, I think I think it is, because when a tax unit change occurs, it doesn't just occur in our office, it occurs in the appraiser's office also.
How often does a tax unit change?
Tax units can change anytime you form a new district, so it overlaps differently. So like, if you would have a new watershed form, whatever that boundary is, if it's a different overlap, that would create a new taxing district. Or you'd have a taxing district change sometimes if there's an annexation or a de-annexation. So a city taxing unit could change to a county, or a county to a city, or township, basically. So those are the main times. It doesn't happen frequently, but we do have to maintain that tax unit map. And we a couple of years ago went to a digital format because we had the paper maps.
Any other questions of Brian? If not, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion that we approve the contract with RNS Digital Services for the appraiser's office in the amount of $8,242 that'd be for 2020.
Yes.
Okay, moved and seconded.
I don't think that was, he was just confirming, I think, what you said, right?
I'll second it.
Were you seconding?
What was you?
No, I was saying it was 2020.
Okay.
It sounded like it was in the form of a question.
Well, I heard a yes, but I didn't hear a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, been moved and seconded to approve the contract with RNS Digital for the appraiser's office. The amount of $808,242. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. And then this one does have a signature page for all of you to sign.
You guys do good job down there.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marty.
Welcome.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I'll bring it down to you.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Okay, that was our last regularly scheduled agenda item. So this time we'll open it up to any citizen concerns, comments.
I'm gonna give you each a copy of what I want to say. So, it's not misquoted or whatever.
Sorry. Hand that one down.
Stan?
Got it.
Oh, she's got, she'll bring one around. There should be enough for you.
Does somebody have more than one?
No, I have
Okay, I'm Linda Peters. I found it disturbing as I watched last week's county commissioners meeting for these reasons. Number one, under road and bridge, discussion of cattle guards being put into a county-owned road and several commissioners wanting to table it so they could research it, and the statement was, we've done it in the past. I think it's very interesting that Mr. Hall talked about this, and I didn't talk to him before I wrote this up. But the statement was, we've done it in the past, so let's just agree to do it. Surely we've learned through the disaster of our county roads that how we did it in the past is not always the way we should keep doing it. It is irrelevant whether the cattle guard is decided yay or nay, but the problem was not how it was presented, that not only how it was presented without warning to the commissioners, but how some didn't want the commissioners to complete their homework before voting on it. Number two, when discussion of how the road should be handled during ice, snowstorms, and a commissioner stated that if the roads were that bad, people just could stay home. I find that pretty arrogant to make a statement of that kind, as what would happen to nursing homes, hospitals, courthouses, etc., if people could not get to work. I find it interesting that this same commissioner made the statement that if we don't let more wind farms into the county, it appears we don't want people and businesses in our county. But the ones that already live and pay taxes here need to just stay home. Number three, when discussion of salt, brine, sand, and how to handle those and excuses of why things were not done, leads me to the question of why this would not be included in a long-term discussion in our county, which we talked about this morning, so thank you. We already know Marion County has not kept our road and bridge department up to the needs of our county. So yes, we have to do as we are, which was behind the 8 ball. But this is not where this should end. We hired an engineer to develop and restructure our road and bridge department, which should include our present and future needs. If storage issues are a concern, then that should be included in the plan, not a day after we need it. Number 4, which I alluded to earlier, on March 25th, 2019, the commissioners agreed to only purchase rock from any quarry that was state approved. Discussion led that each county rock hauler would have a form that needed to be signed from the quarry stating it was state approved rock. What happened to that discussion as 9 months later, there's still confusion as to what the county should be buying? On a final note, our county has only had an engineer for 7 months to fix very serious problems across the entire county. Why does this body believe that wind farms need to take precedence over lifelong residents and farmers? Or are they just supposed to stay home and pay their taxes? And the other thing I wanted to bring is I hand each of you a copy of an article from the High Plains Journal, opinion page, December 23rd, 2019, submitted by Kim Brenneman from Parnell, Iowa. And it's called Watch Out for Energy Easements. Recently, on a warm fall day, I stopped at my 77-year-old father-in-law's farmhouse because he was meeting with a salesman for the 4th time regarding a transmission line easement. I walked into his sun porch to find 4 men with the sole purpose of persuading him to sign. Weeks later, he had to chase off surveyors who were trespassing on his property. Stories of wind salesmen tell us that they manipulate retirees with phrases such as, "You're going to leave a green legacy," "The turbines will pay for your nursing home," and "You're leaving income for your grandchildren." In the case of transmission lines, they tell of the need for upgrades, that nobody goes without electricity, and this line is needed because there might be a storm and someone may die, followed with, "Sign here." A salesman came into VR's home, walked around, commenting on family heirlooms while presenting her with the alleged opportunity to get money for wind turbines. She asked about the effects wind turbines would have on the 40 acres of wildflower pollinators she had recently planted on CRP ground, and he assured her that we'd work with the government. After telling him that she wasn't interested, he then said, "I have something to show you that I'm not supposed to show." It was a large plat map of the townships with certain sections marked for who had already signed easements. It was not true. Stories have been told of salesmen showing up on holiday, seeming lonely and pathetic, or with a pet dog to break the ice, and approaching senior citizens in retirement communities. Read the fine print. Do not sign an easement that will affect the legacy of your land, and never sign anything without an attorney present. Get an attorney who understands easement law and is not already retained by an energy company. There are cases in Iowa where a transmission line company extends a 75-foot easement to the whole farm in case of a storm, and then uses the whole farm as their collateral. If you find someone needing protection, family members who are senior citizens, friends, or neighbors, from the predatory practices of companies pursuing land easements, encourage the landowner to ask questions and seek help from a knowledgeable, unbiased attorney. And I guess this whole article tells you that it's not just Marion County, and that the board looked at possibly taking a step, taking a pause to get some of this figured out before we bring more in. And I guess I take a little bit of offense to statements being made this morning that by a commissioner that said, "Well, we already had a plan, and I knew how I was going to vote, and it's just politics." I think you need to stop, all of you, and say, I vote how my constituents want me to vote, not how I want to vote. Thank you.
Good. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Name?
I come,
Bill. Bill.
I come here to thank the county for fixing my road coming into Ramona. I know we're the armpit of Marion County, but the way you fixed it, put a sign up, rough road. It's a joke, I'm the mayor there, that I have to take people coming in and out of that town, if they can make it to Dickerson County, they're safe. And then put up a sign, rough road. Since you put that up, I've had about 15 calls about that sign. It's a joke. I mean, they try to keep up the roads, the rock roads, which is going to pot. We can't get sheriff protection up there. We can't get our roads fixed up there. I had to put the maintenance guy out just to clean the one road going downtown, that short section of the county road, because it was so bad. Dickerson County had that road cleared the day after it snowed. We did not see a truck up there until late that evening or the next morning. Now, I know you got a lot of roads to go, but please, we have no income in that little town. We're self-supporting and we work our ass off. So I would like to get some support up there from the county if all possible. I guess I'm gonna have to run against you because you're not doing your job.
If you watch the videos, I'm kind of the Lone Ranger here.
Yeah, but that's, I wasn't gonna say nothing, but I kept thinking about that because I live right at that corner and I look at that sign. And my My phone has been ringing off the wall.
So is mine. And I got pictures of it sent to me, several pictures by
I
several
did too.
people.
And
Yeah.
Have
they
you
said
had
is
any
it
discussions with the engineer?
several years ago, we did, and we were told that that road was gonna be redone. They was gonna put a cap over it. We've been told that ever since before she even become commissioner. I think about 8, 9 years we've been told that. They chipped and sealed it, or put blacktop in it. That is putting a Band-Aid on a big hoping sore when you got cow camp and you got dinosaurs coming down through there with 90 to 100,000 pounds on them trucks, just beating them roads out. Half of them don't even pay taxes there. Cow camp is in Dickerson County, but yet we have to pay for that road getting tore up. Why can't the county do something about that, is my theory.
Isn't that cow camp straight west, or straight east of you? They're on that corner too?
That is just a part of
part of
their,
their operation.
their biggest one is in Dickerson County.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there any load weight limit on that road? Or should there be?
Should be, it should be in Spoken, it should be 80,000 pounds, or 85.5.
They
I think it's 65,000, if I can't remember, I think it's 65,000.
But that says for through traffic now, that's a different story.
Because,
And
see,
that-
a lot
You
of
don't even
people-
have through traffic there.
A lot of people brings up my son, he lives right there at the corner, that big semi. Like two weeks ago, it stretched out to 135 feet. And I made him a bet. I'll bet anybody in the world, even if that thing's got a drill on it, I'll put it up against any grain truck, because he's got 50 tires out there. It weighs less than what any of them trucks are.
Tire on the ground.
Yes.
Spread the weight, makes square
Yes.
inches, I know that.
But when you take, and I hate to hit dinosaurs because they tore the road up in front of my house with their soybean. When they come down through there with a single axle truck and that short bed and it's stacked above it, it's just pushing all your blacktop right out there.
But I will tell you, Bill, I take a little bit of a different position on this than you do. I agree with what you're saying, but this is ag county, okay? My problem is that we need to build roads to accommodate ag. You know, we have to feed the world, agriculture feeds the world, okay? You need big trucks and we have become more incorporated in ag. We're not the two-wheel tractor, okay? So my only point is the county is not looking to the future of what we have here. We're not supporting our big industry that we have here. We're kicking them in the teeth. We need to fix these roads so that they can take big tractors and stuff across them. And that sign that you referred to does say no through traffic at 65,000 pounds. That road doesn't even have through traffic. That's the part that it is a joke, because just because a cattle pod or whatever comes to that feedlot, that's not through traffic. They have to be guaranteed to get to their destination. That's talking about somebody going on Highway 15, going straight through there to 77. That doesn't happen,
Yes, it does.
very rarely.
Oh, no.
Very
I live
rarely.
at that corner.
No, I'm talking about on 330th now.
I'm talking,
330th.
I'm talking coming down Quail Creek, out 360. They use that as a through street. I got beer wagons come through there. I got, oh yeah, I got.
And where are they going then? Since you, because I talked to several
They go out
truckers
to
this past
Hope
week.
and go to Salina that way.
You're talking about people that, cattle farmers
Semi.
and ranchers right there in our, well, yeah, they have to reach their destination, that's my point. But if
But
they
they're-
bought cattle from.
But load them legally.
But
I-
legally is what did you
I
just
was
say, 80,
raised,
90,000
you
pounds?
talk about
Yeah,
agriculture.
they'll get-
You
I
have
was
80,
raised here.
90,000 pounds is legally.
I was raised here. I've
Okay.
lived here since 1949.
And the roads probably haven't changed a bit since then.
No, it was a highway coming down 360th. That was a road. It was all blacktop where it
Okay.
got ground out.
Okay.
But no, I've seen some drivers come down through there. I think it's Kenny and Lisa. They never have I ever seen any green above their truck. Never. I'll agree with you. That road probably does need rework. But there again, it's kind of like my streets, every one of my streets need rework. You gotta have money.
I'm not disagreeing that that
You gotta
road
have
needs,
money.
that
That
road needs to be
money.
done. Horribly, and we've been crying, I've been crying about that now for a long time, about that road. But I'm just saying, to patch it and stuff like that, we're not doing justice here to the county because it isn't.
Somebody's gonna get killed on it, because if you go to, Thornhill, I don't know if his wife, his girlfriend hit one of them, went airborne, because I went out and pulled it in, damaged front end. He just went and got in that car, he don't want to cause no trouble. Somebody's gonna get killed. And putting blacktop in, that works for a while, but it gets beat out.
It doesn't work more than 30 days in the holes you're talking about, the potholes. And because the potholes are right in the middle of the road, so you can't go left or right on it without missing. So, no, I agree, the road is pathetic. I'm just saying that we as a county needs to fix that road right, and there has been discussion about taking it back to gravel. And then you talk about a nightmare, because we know what our gravel roads look like. So I'm saying we need to fix it right to accommodate what we have here.
Yeah, but you're also gonna, at some point, you're gonna have to have some weight enforcement, because we know good and well, there's so many overloads, you know, and there's no way of enforcing it.
That's
You know, if they're out there on a state highway, yeah, I mean, when the highway patrol may be driving around with a set of portable scales, but to enforce weight limits, you know, with the kind of vehicles that are going down these roads, it's almost a whole new department. But, you know, they're still, I mean, those that are driving those vehicles need to realize that overloading those vehicles are just causing so much damage, you know. But, you know, even, I have to, you know, the new bridge out here on the reservoir is now open.
You seen that this morning?
About a month ago, Bryce Goebel asked me to go out there with him because Corps engineers wanted to talk about it a little bit. They're gonna open it, and of course, you know, we have the responsibility of maintaining that road. Well, I was sitting there, they said, we're gonna put a weight limit of 34,000 on it. What, you know, it didn't register with me, but I saw Bryce's mouth kind of drop open. There isn't you can't really run a farm vehicle over that bridge anymore. And yet the day it opened, I followed a semi across. Boy, and they've got big signs posted. They even have a flashing sign down there at the bottom, 34,000 weight limit.
So what bridge was that? Did they just
The
redo it?
bridge that's right on the dam.
And they fixed it? And why didn't they fix it to where it could accommodate more?
They said they want that bridge, they put a life expectancy on it of 50 years. And they said the only way they can get a life expectancy of that is to lower the weight limit to that.
Oh, so they didn't fix it to that point, they're just trying to make it last longer.
Well, they're trying to get, I mean, I think it's fixed right. It's just they're trying to get more years out of them than what they used to.
Well, you watch a semi go across it, so it's capable of holding
Yeah,
it. It's
you know,
just-
34,000,
it's just they're trying to-
I guess 34,000 is barely a 2-ton truck.
It's an empty truck.
I think it's 24.
The sign,
Empty semi?
sign's
You
24.
could- No, you couldn't go over with anything.
It's 34,000 on the new bridge.
Not 34.
But they
But, you know,
still get back to you.
Well, they do need service up there. Ramona has been the armpit for a long time, and they can't get any road repair, and they've been begging forever.
And I will give this woman credit, she does come to our council meetings, so she knows what I'm fighting up there in that town.
You have really cleaned that town up. I mean, from what it used to be and stuff, they're
And
really cleaned
we're gonna
it
do a little
up.
bit more because I got somebody that's gonna go talk to her sheriff.
Good, good. Yeah, you need some of that up there too. Yeah, they worked really hard to clean up Ramona. I mean, they work like dogs up there. They have pride in their community, and they all chip together and do it, but they just don't seem like they get any help. They try to get rock, they try to get dirt to help build an extension to fire area. I mean, and they just, no. It's a sad deal, very sad. And I don't know why it is that way, but it's what they've been experiencing, and I've seen it firsthand.
Well, we don't ask for much help.
And I know you don't ask for much. Well, what I was referring to, though, you did ask for it.
Well,
got
we
turned
did,
down.
and what we were offered was dirt.
But that was from the wind farm now.
I didn't bring that up.
Well, yeah, you did, I just pointed out who it was
Yeah.
from, yes, I know.
We were supposed to get about anywhere from 4 to 8 loads. He told me I could have 30,
And then they changed their mind,
and then they changed their mind, yeah.
so.
Being that you haven't really met, communicated with the.
I've called a
the new
lady
engineer.
before down there.
Well, I think you need to schedule a meeting with him.
Price.
Voice your concerns, you know, present it to him, I guess, in a written, and, you know, because, you know, he's got lots of irons in the fire, I know that.
And Price has only been around with 7 months.
Yeah, he's been here 7 months.
He doesn't know.
But, you know, the buck really stops with him when it comes to those roads. Yeah, I mean, we set the budget on it, and, you know, we approve purchases, but when it comes to that maintenance, he needs to be intimately involved in it.
Tell him about your TV, Bill.
I'm sold, I just need to get a satellite. I asked them if they'd pay that $100 a month.
And they told you?
It wasn't very nice. I've been ran off that property.
Anything else, sir?
No.
Okay, anyone else have anything? Okay, then I'm gonna make a motion that we adjourn.
Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm glad you're
Merry
here.
Christmas, everyone.
Nice
Merry
to see you.
Christmas.
Well, I had to come up here on some wood. I got a piece of property there.